board can consider these cases without interruption. For these public hearings, the board reviews the correspondence submitted in support of and opposition to these cases. The board also reviews correspondence and recommendations from other government agencies in preparation for the hearings. In today's hearing, staff will present the site plans, maps, photographs, and other documents that comprise the case record. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the appellant will present his or her case to the board. After the appellant's presentation, the board will hear those wishing to speak in support of the appeal. If the appeal has opposition, the board will then hear from those parties. After the opposition presents its testimony, the appellant will have a period for rebuttal. According to the BZA rules, the appellant has 5 minutes for presentation if no opposition is present. In contested cases, the BZA rules allow 10 minutes for each side to present testimony. Should the appellant wish to provide rebuttal testimony, the appellant should reserve some portion of the allotted 10 minutes. At the conclusion of each hearing, the board will deliberate and then vote on that case. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases under the provisions of the Metro Zoning Code, Section 1740-180. All section numbers that we refer to today come from the Metro Zoning Code, which applies to the entire jurisdiction of the metropolitan government. The zoning code was adopted by the Metro Council and became effective on January 1st, 1998. I will introduce the entire zoning code and make it a part of today's record. The Metro Code requires a record of these proceedings. Because the BZA meetings are recorded for the Metro Nashville network, it's imperative that anyone addressing the board please come forward to the front table and speak into the microphone. All speakers should identify yourself by name and address and then make your desired presentation. The Metro Code requires 4 members of our 7-member board to establish a quorum. The code also requires at least 4 affirmative votes to grant an appeal. In the event that 5 or more members are present but the appeal fails to receive 4 affirmative votes, the case will remain on the board's agenda for the next 30 days. Applications that fail to receive 4 affirmative votes within 30 days of the public hearing shall be deemed denied by operation of law. Pursuant to board rules, an aggrieved party may appeal board decisions to Chancery or Circuit Court within 60 days of the entry of a BZA order. Additionally, as per the BZA rules, an aggrieved party may file a motion for rehearing by the BZA within 60 days of the original hearing date. After that time elapses, the board's decision becomes final and no further action can be taken. If your appeal is granted, you are required to obtain the permit for which you applied. A permit must be obtained within 2 years for a board approval to remain valid. It should also be noted that if false or misleading testimony is presented to the board, any board approval could be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing before the BZA. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all appellants have been notified by certified mail, and all legal notice requirements have been fulfilled. I do have a few preliminary announcements regarding deferrals and withdrawal. Case 2019-404 has been withdrawn.
Deferred or withdrawn?
Withdrawn.
Okay.
Case 2019-508 has been deferred indefinitely. Case 2020-007 has been deferred indefinitely. For members of the public, our board utilizes a consent agenda at each of its meetings. One board member reviews the record for each case prior to the hearing and identifies those cases which meet the criteria for the requested action by the appellant. If the reviewing board member determines that testimony in the case would not alter the material facts in any substantial way, the case is recommended for the consent agenda for approval. We'll enter into the record those cases that have been so recommended, and if anyone is here in opposition, please raise your hand, identify yourself, make sure I see you so that we can pull the case off of consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. Mr. Chairman, these are the cases that have been recommended for the consent agenda. First, case 2019-496 involving property at 510 Woodland Street. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 496? Seeing none, next case 2020-006 involving property at 1618 17th Avenue South. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 6? Next case 2020-008 involving property at 7236 Old Burkett Road. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 8? Next case 2020-009 involving property at 3105 Belmont Boulevard. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 009? Case 2019-011 involving property at 902 Waldkirch Avenue. Is there anyone here in opposition to Case 11? Case 2020-018 involving property at 4615 Medora Street. Is there anyone here in opposition to Case 18? Yes, so we will pull Case 18 from the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. Case 2020-019 involving property at 5813 Vine Ridge Drive. This is a sidewalk variance request. The applicant has agreed to the planning's recommendation. Is there anyone here in opposition to Case 19? And finally, Case 2020-012 involving property at 2411 Vaux Lane. Is there anyone here in opposition to Case 12?
It's 21.
21, I'm sorry. 2020-021 involving property at 2411 Vaux Lane. Is there anyone here in opposition to Case 21? Seeing none, to review, Mr. Chairman, the cases on consent agenda are 2019-496, 2020-006, 2020-008, 2020-009, 2020-011, 2020-019, and 2020-021. Staff would solicit a vote from the board at this time on that consent agenda.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. You what? All right, that passes.
Members of the public, if your case was just approved on the consent agenda, you're welcome to stay, but you are free to go. Please give our staff until Monday to process all the documentation associated with your appeal, at which point you may come in to pursue the permits for which you have applied. Mr. Chairman, before we move on to the cases to be heard, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize any elected officials who are in attendance and would like to address the board at this point. Councilmember Benedict, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Ms. Lamb. Good afternoon, board. So I'm here. I have two cases coming up today. The first one is case 2020-018, and I am in support. I did send a letter, by the way, in regards to the two cases in my district. With this, Ms. Green has been in excellent contact with me, and I've actually driven by the home. The building to the rear of the home looks great. It's a dead-end street, and I don't see any reason not to support this. I think it's a good appeal that should be supported and approved.
Okay. Great, thank you. And I think, and I think the height variance is really just on one side of the structure, right? It's kind of a modern structure that
Yep.
has an angle, and it's not that it's not a giant building with the whole thing above the height restriction. It's just really that one little eave.
That's correct.
Okay.
And from the street, it looks even with the house.
Okay.
The second case that I'm here for is 2020-002. There is one of my constituents here who brought it to my attention today that I should actually speak against this, and I understand exactly why. So first, I was going to say the appellants here have not contacted me at all, so I was not aware of what their exact plans were for the site. And speaking with a constituent who's here who it does not support this, he showed me that there are some real stormwater issues around this property. Stormwater is already planning to go out there and redo the culvert, which will help with some of that. However, this property and the properties around it are low line, and to me it makes sense that we need to make sure stormwater supports two structures on that property rather than the way it is zoned today. So at this point in time, I would not be in support of that. I would trust your judgment whether to defer that or not.
And they're asking for well, is your preference that we defer that case for you to have more interaction with stormwater and the applicant?
My recommendation would be
Or to hear it and deny? I mean, because in general, if council members come before the board and ask for a deferral, that's given very strong consideration by the board, and typically the case is deferred for the council member to work with whoever he or she wants to work with until the next time we hear it. But if you think, hey, I've seen it, that isn't going to help, prefer you vote against it, then we'll take that in consideration and hear the case today.
What I would prefer is that you guys look at it and listen to both the appellant and the neighbor next door who has the drainage problems. He does have pictures of the drainage on his phone. I don't know if he can present that to you or not here today. But, for me, I would say that I'd rather have a decision up or down today.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any questions for Council Lady? All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if we could go back to the consent agenda, I failed to include a case that was recommended for the consent agenda, case 2019-304. This is involving property at 2405 Elliott Drive. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 304? You're in opposition or you're that? Okay. Is there anyone in opposition to case 304? So seeing none, this one would be appropriate to move to vote on for the consent agenda as well.
All right, we'll move 304 back on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'm just a little confused. Which one was withdrawn? 304 or 404?
404 was withdrawn.
The next one was, yeah,
Thank you.
the daycare in the school was withdrawn, and this is the existing porch that's on the alley. So there's a motion, there's a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? That passes.
So your case has been approved. You're free to go. Council Lady Toombs, would you like to speak to the board now?
Good afternoon. So I have one case before you that I have lost the place. Okay. It's 219-495 and involves a property located at 261 French Landing Drive. It's a height variance request. The owners of this property appeared before some residents at a community meeting in the district, and the residents were very excited about this project. One aspect of the project that they were very excited about was the prospect of having a restaurant on the bottom floor of the hotel. And what the owners presented to the community was that given where the building is located, that in order to have that restaurant, they would need that sixth floor. Without that sixth floor, then most likely the restaurant would be nixed, which I know would be a great disappointment to the community because in District 2, we have a severe lack of sit-down restaurants that the residents can enjoy. And so it'd be very disappointing to the community to have this project go forward and it not have that restaurant. So I am in support of granting the variance so that the project can go forward as it was presented to the community.
Are there any questions?
There, it's on. I noticed there was some opposition in our packet, and I was wondering, did you have the chance to talk to that particular neighbor or anyone else in the opposition, and do you feel like their concerns have been addressed?
That was actually the first time I've seen opposition to the project. When I looked at the packet, I know notices went out for the hearing before planning, notices went out for the public hearing before the council, and I had a community meeting, and I've never heard of any opposition until I happened to look at the packet and see that letter. The zoning request has already gone through, it's passed through council. So it would be too late to say that the project can't go forward at all, and that's how I read that letter. And so at this point, I wouldn't be able to address that person's concerns because the zoning request has gone through, so some type of project is going forward.
All right. And I think that they're asking for an additional story to the building, but the story would add 4 feet to the maximum height. So the maximum height 75, they're wanting 79, so it's still only 4 feet taller, even though they're adding an additional story.
Right.
But you're fully supportive and
Yes.
all right, awesome, thank you.
All right, thank
Are there any
you.
other questions for the council lady? All right, thank you for being here.
Cut it off.
Councilman Cash, would you like to address the board?
Tom Cash from District 18. I had 2 items on the agenda. One went through the consent agenda, LED sign request that the neighborhood association worked out some concessions, and I think we came to an agreement, and I'm glad that that can be part of the record, those conditions. The second is number 17, 1904 Bernard Avenue. I see with this no special hardship or special condition that makes this, would make this necessary. The only purpose I see is that they want a piece of land that that more can be done with and that is worth more money. There's no plan. I spoke with the appellant a little bit. There are no house plans for us to, negotiate with to see if there's something that could work out. It just is about the what can be done with the land. And the survey shows it is indeed well under 8,000 square feet. So I would urge you to deny this request. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the councilman? Hey, thanks for being here. Congratulations. I think it's your first time with us. Thank you.
I don't think I see any other council members here. So absent any other announcements, Mr. Chairman, we're ready to proceed with the cases.
All right, we'll go to the first case.
First case for the board to consider is case 2019-478. This is involving property at 650 Putnam Drive. This is a request for a variance from the front street setback requirements to construct a porch on an existing single-family residence.
Is the applicant here?
Is Mr. Cockrum here? Mr. Robert Cockrum, 650 Putnam Drive.
All right, let's just, I'll move that, is there any opposition to this case here? All right, since there's no opposition to this case, I'll move that we defer it, but if he because there's no opposition, if he shows up before the end of the day, then we can consider hearing it. But in the meantime, I'll defer it one meeting as our standard for a first no-show.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All right, that meeting, that is deferred unless he shows up and requests that we hear it today.
Next case, 2019-495, involving property at 261 French Landing Drive. This is a request for a variance from the height restrictions to construct a hotel. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property as MUG. This is the aerial photo giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant is before you now, and finally the photograph showing you the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 495? Seeing none, the applicant will have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Barry Cleveland, 2200 Rosa Parks Boulevard, Nashville.
Cal Patel, 261 French Landing Drive.
Chelsea Hannon, 2200 Rosa Parks Boulevard.
So what we have here is a 3-acre lot, and there is a proposed Marriott Residence Inn. It is one of the higher-end luxury hotels that is being proposed here, and that's one of the reasons for the request for the height restriction. Is because the lower level of the hotel would be for amenities in the hotel, restaurant, versus in the quarters for the residents would be, second floor and above. And there is a minimum standard of number of rooms that the hotel would need, which is 124. And so the 4 feet total height restriction that was previously noted is basically what we're requesting with that 6th level added. So it's not going to be much more than what's already can be there by the current zoning of MUG. I'm going to let Mr. Patel speak a little bit about the hotel itself.
Yeah, so this is, like you were saying before, it's a Residence Inn, 124 rooms, about 100,000 square feet. Plus, we're going to have a restaurant there. The Metro Center is missing a sit-down restaurant, and that's been the biggest thing that the community has been needing is a restaurant. So that's, for us to go up to 6 stories, that gives us ample parking for the restaurant and for the hotel. That's why we're requesting this.
So just to be perfectly clear and make sure there's no misunderstandings, we did request the variance for 6-story and 79 feet, and that is the reason for the height restriction. So I think that's all at this time. We'll be glad to answer any questions from the member of the board.
Your application notes a couple other hardships you didn't address. Having trouble reading it, but so something about a drainage ditch and other restrictions. Can you address that?
Yes, so the property is located at the intersection of French Landing and also Venture Boulevard or Venture Drive. And it's a radius around the property. There's 3 sides that are accessible by street. French Landing does not have a curb cut at the present. And so the proposed entrances are from Venture, from the side and at the very end. The one side is a drainage ditch that cannot be crossed. There's other buildings on the other adjacent properties as well. So the constraint is that for the development is to meet the parking requirements, and the intent of the project is that it's being constrained by the number of accessible points. So ideally, a third access point from the rear would be ideal for fire access as well.
So the amount of parking you have on the site meets code minimum requirements?
Yes, it does.
And the ditch you referred to, is it along, you said Venture?
So it's along if you're looking at the diagram on the right side.
Along the other property line?
Yes, right, yeah. So Venture, goes around on 2 sides, and then French Landing is on the front.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
Anything else to add?
Yeah, as the councilwoman has stated, we did have a community meeting, and everyone there was very positive in the project, and like I said, wanted to see more sit-down restaurants. They also have a banquet hall, a 3,000 square foot banquet hall that also be accessible for the public use as well, and that is something that is very desired by local communities as well as local businesses. So they've had most of their clientele will come in by Uber, taxi, or other means, and not just automobile traffic as well. So there shouldn't be a burden on the roads from additional traffic, because those roads are there built for the required traffic loads. So. That's all I have.
Anything else to add? Any other questions from the board? All right, we will close the public hearing. Discussion.
That's fine.
An opinion on the hardship.
Sure, that's fine.
They're not asking for much of a variance, but I'm just not sure that, and I'm not saying it's not there, I'm sure I don't understand.
So maybe, I mean, my question is, it does have a little bit of a pie shape. It does have a rounded corner, and were it to be pulled out, squared up, and didn't have the drainage issue on the side, would it be possible to do it in 5 stories? And if so, then I think that's a case for their hardship. So
Right, that's why I was asking about the hardship of the land. And it looks like they're required to have 142 spaces. They've provided 142 spaces for parking, which would limit their, where they can build, their building footprint. And so, maybe they could do a different design that would have make it a 5-story building. But I think it's somewhat reasonable that's a somewhat reasonable hardship, that they're limited by the properties of the land.
So you'd be inclined to grant the variance?
Because it's such a small ask with the 4 feet from the 75 to the 79 feet, I could vote in favor of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just based off of what she just said, I could support the motion. And also, it helps that the council person talked to the neighborhood, addressed concerns, and it seems like there's a lot of support for this project, and it's a minimal ask. And I appreciate that they're going to meet the parking requirement and not ask for a variance on that. So,
Is that a motion?
I was going to ask Christina to make the motion, and I was going to support it.
Sure, why not? So I'll move to approve the variance request based upon the existing conditions of the property.
Second.
There's a second. Is there any more discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion passes. Good luck. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that motion passed 5 with 1 abstention from Mr. Lawless, who just got here. All right, next case.
Next case, 2019-506, involving property at 2048 Castleman Drive. This is a request for a variance from front setback requirements to construct a single-family residence. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property is R15. Aerial photograph showing you the property and surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally, the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 506? Seeing none, the applicant will have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Yeah, my name is Michael Shears, 5825 Old Harding Pike, Nashville, Tennessee. What we are looking at here, the existing house that is on the lot is situated 56.9 feet from the road. My client wants to build a new residence, and when you come in a neighborhood like this and do that, normally you'll take the average of the houses, 3 or 4 on the block that surround it, and average those setbacks, and that'll be your setback for your new residence. On this particular lot, the current house lines up with the other 2. The other 2 are at approximately 92 and 93 feet back, but due to the way the road curves, this particular house is in line with them, but only 56.9 back. If we were to set it where you normally would in this situation, we would be forced to be back approximately 92 feet, which would put the front of that house basically in the rear of the next door neighbor and shove everything to the back right-hand corner of the lot. So what we're proposing is just to be able to use the existing setback that is there for our front setback for a new residence.
And is this going to just be one residence on the property?
The plan, her plan is to build one residence, yes.
And she would be, if that were a restriction, that would be acceptable?
I don't believe that would be a problem with her. The whole time she's talked about 1. I know it's zoned for 2, but the whole time she's talked about 1.
Okay. Any questions?
Well phrased, that's what she plans on. I liked your comment about a single.
Well, I mean, it's a street where almost every lot has, almost every lot on that street has been developed into 2 homes. And, you know, I don't necessarily have an issue one way or the other, but it wasn't presented to us as 2 homes. And if it were to come to us as 2 homes, I think that we would expect a site plan and more detail.
Correct.
And so that's why I said, you know, maybe in this case it's restricted to a single home. And if she, if the owner chooses to do something differently, then they can come back and make that request. But
sure.
And again, that's just my question to you. We haven't discussed it, and I don't know how the other board members feel, but that was why I asked the question.
Right.
Are there any questions? Did you have anything else to add?
Getting back to your point, we've never, due to the fact that this is on a corner lot and you have a side setback along Kirtland, which is 30 feet, I believe that's why it shrinks your envelope as it is, and I believe that's why we've never discussed 2 on there.
And you had provided a lot of diagrams, and I want
Yes.
to make sure I'm looking at your diagram right. The one I'm looking at has a building footprint, I guess, slashed in.
Right.
Hashed in. And so the corner that's on the west, that corner, I think I'm understanding your diagram to read that only that corner would be 56.9 feet back from the property line. And the rest of the home would be further back.
Due to the fact that it's at an angle like that, to go back at an angle like currently the existing house, there's portions of it which would be outside of today's building envelope. So in order to be able to have something that would fit, you would run straight across how have it drawn right now. So the way that road angles, that's correct. You would have you would start at one corner where you would be at 56.9, but then as that envelope ran with the road, you would end up your other corner right at approximately the 90 feet. So that's exactly right.
Any other questions? Anything else to add?
No, sir.
All right, we'll close the public hearing.
I think the variance request is fine. It lines up with the existing homes in the neighborhood. It's actually not, only that, as he described, only the part of the building is what goes from 56.9 and on. So I think it's a fine request.
I agree and also I think the hardship is unique because of the curve and how the house currently sits. Like, I think this is probably the right case for a variance. I was going to ask, though, I don't know how the rest of the board feels about the restriction proposed by the chairman.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Does anybody have a problem or issue with it possibly going to 2 houses, or do you think that this should be limited to the one, and if they want to, come back?
Their base zoning is R15, and I don't think we can restrict it to one home because of that reason.
Well, no, I just said that we provide that variance, but I think that probably is great. And you know, frankly, it may be a case because of the building envelope that he's presented and the setback. It seems almost impossible to build a second home without asking for a side setback. And so I think they'd have to come back anyway. But I'm okay with whatever the board chooses to do. I just threw that out there because I like to know what people want to do, and you know, when we provide for a variance.
I might take issue, with all due respect, if it's agreed to in the request, I think it could be limited to a single dwelling, but I don't know if I want to put them on that spot right now, but
I think I'm impressed with the letter from the council member, Russ Pulley. He said that they had had an opportunity for the neighbors to be, well, I've got his letter here, to be, and that he was taking a neutral position. So he certainly did not come out against him.
Okay. So was there a motion?
I will move to approve the variance without any conditions.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion. There's a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. All opposed, that motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next case.
Next case, 2019-511. This is involving property at 1220 North 5th Street. It's a request for a variance from the setback requirements to construct a multifamily development. If the applicant wants to come forward to the table, you can do that now. Before you is the zoning map showing the zoning of the property as RM20A. This is the aerial photography showing you the surrounding area. Site plan submitted by the applicant is before you now. And finally, the photograph showing you the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 511? So there is opposition, so each side will have 10 minutes to make your desired presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address before making your presentation.
All right, you would state your name and address and tell us why you're here. Hit your microphone, make sure the red light is on, just right at the bottom, down, right, one of those buttons. Other one, there you go.
There we go, sorry. Mark Wallace, 340 Wandering Circle, Franklin. We're bringing this case to you. It's a RM20 lot. I've done a lot of highlighting on those maps. Option 1 is to go into a 20-foot rear setback. There's a little bit of history with this lot in that it's one of the, on Douglas as you're driving east, it jogs over and then also climbs a hill after you pass Lishy. It's a really heavily developed area, and this is one of those lots that would be kind of on show for a lot of people. It's 10,000 square feet, and it is by density a 5 build. We're not looking to do a 5 build there. We're looking to do a 4 pads, try to do some symmetry versus just cramming as much as you can. And I believe if, you know, that's what the likelihood of this lot is. The symmetry of 4 single-family residence homes there up as they climb the hill is probably the right design for that. There are others, and we've talked to many other people about cramming 5 flats and then having a parking lot across the rear setback 20 feet. That is not, we would prefer not to do that kind of stuff, and frankly wouldn't build it and probably pull out of it. But that's our best shot to making what we do is, you know, an excellent product for that district, which is, we think aesthetically the best there and for the best purposes. The history of that was I had reached out to both the councilman and the neighborhood, the adjacent neighbor directly, and engaged them. And the councilman took a neutral stance, and then also talked to the neighbor who was opposed because she didn't want to be next to new builds so close. And the option 2 shows a scenario where you can restore, and I verified this with both codes and mapping, that you can restore the 1 lot line to then get a 2 build, which would be drastically worse than what they would like. And so the bottom line is we want to do something that is reasonable and it makes the best sense for that lot versus just cramming a bunch of...
How do you know that's drastically worse than what they would like?
Because they specifically told me they don't want some high houses right next to their home. And so this would be, instead of 1 house, that if you restore a lot line on option 2, that puts 2 large houses right next to their lot instead of 1. And what we would do is we'd still maintain that 20-foot and the landscape barrier across the board for either scenario regardless, but...
So I guess, I mean, when I read this case, and, you know, there are a lot of letters of opposition, well, 5 letters, which is in our world a lot.
Quite a bit.
And the one thing that just kept coming to me is, you know, there's a 20-foot rear setback required. You want 5 foot, but there's no rear to your property. Everything has a 5-foot setback. So why is there no? I mean, it seems like on any piece of property, even if it's an odd shape, there should be a rear to the property.
Sure, and I can adjust that to some degree. And this is where initially that is addressed at 1220 North 5th. So traditionally the front is where they're addressed from. And I think maybe John Michael could help us in this instance where traditionally on the regular rectangular lots, they're Front is where they're addressed, and the rear is where they're, the opposite side. So the bottom line is, since this is on Douglas, they made a decision to switch that to where the front would be the Douglas side instead of the rear setback being to the west, where it would be basically a compass 20-foot. It would be almost, that small sliver would be the rear setback to the west, that under the traditional sense. And then as we're progressing through, Code's made the decision to do that, and so that's kind of where we're left with. And
but what is the rear? I guess, do you propose? If you came to me or came to the board and said, hey, it's such an odd shaped lot, I really don't want the rear to be where Code says it is, but if you'll let me front this, I don't know that we have that authority, but I'd be much more willing to entertain a variance if at least one side of the property had a 20-foot setback. And so I could at least say, well, conceptually.
I can tell you this. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. Okay, sorry. There was initially the rear setback was the west side. And then then it changed at Codes to become the south, which is now 33% of the lot. So there's where the discrepancy is. Now, we could still call that west side the rear setback and just face all the houses.
But I'm saying, but nowhere in your drawing is there 20 feet from any road. So
yeah.
even huh?
Yeah, there is. So if you go to the west side and put a compass on that, there's a 20-foot. You'd be 20 feet off of that point. And I actually have I have one of the sheets with me. But if you measured off 20 feet from that point, that's where it would traditionally have been measured.
What's the acreage of this lot?
It's at the feet is 10,051 feet. I'm not sure I could do a quick calculation to find it, but it's a rounding up to 5 is what the average is. And that's we don't like to, and we wouldn't follow through if it was, if it wouldn't be favorable here. So and I think that's what this lot's going to be left to. I can guarantee it because I know who the owner is. So. What their intentions were.
I may not be reading this correctly, but there are 4 sides to this lot, and I don't see a full 20 feet from any side all the way down that side. So I don't know which is east and which is west, and because it's not labeled on this drawing in a way that I can understand it. But I do know that if you look at the top right, that's less than 20 feet from the line.
Yep.
The top is less than 20 feet. The left is less than 20 feet. The bottom's less than 20 feet.
Yep.
So that's 4 sides. Every side has less than 20 feet in your drawing. So I don't understand your point a minute ago saying that wasn't true.
If this would be that would be measured as the 20-foot setback in a traditional way to look at a lot that would be addressed from this side, and then it would be the rear would be this. Typically, it's a compass drawing. Typically, it's a compass drawing. That's all I know it's minute compared to the rest of the lot, but that's.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. But are you talking about because it has that little edge on the corner?
Yeah, that's what I've taken it through one of the examiners that typically that's the way it goes. If it's not a non-conforming lot like this, but since this is facing Douglas, it's kind of changed the game to where if that's the rear of the lot, they'll draw a compass right there and give a 20-foot setback on that corner.
Because it's not a point, it's an actual side and the other side.
And that 20 feet can be carried up. It's just a matter of when do you call that a side versus when you call it the rear. Would be an art because it's a non-conforming lot. It's hard to pick a side.
Well, I can see why your neighbors are confused.
Yeah. It's a hard lot to deal with, but I think that if that 20-foot setback remains, this is a lot that has potential for 5 builds on it, and you can only put 5 builds on it if you park them all in a parking lot, and I think that's a worst-case scenario. And I think now there's a second worst-case scenario, which is worse to the neighbor, which is you restore a lot line along that southern margin, and then use a 20-foot setback for your drive on the remaining piece that you didn't restore a lot line for. Which is then you put 2 houses right there, and that's exactly what they don't want. So we're trying to work with
Well,
the...
they don't want a house 5 feet from them, is what I read, and that
Well,
was...
they're on, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, that's exactly what their letter stated is that, and again, it said the house right next door who's directly impacted said they didn't want to, the house 5 feet from them, and they, if that was considered the rear of the property, which I believe it is, they don't want that. So,
And they would be at least 10 feet, just so, I mean, if they're, unless they're right on the property line, it would be more than 5 feet. I mean, the letter might be somewhat.
Well, I mean, there's no question that you have a strange piece of property in terms of its shape. It's troubling to me that there's not stronger neighbor support, and the council members decided to remain neutral and is not excited about it. That's
Yeah, I know. We're doing the best we can with what the lot looks like, you know what I mean? That's what we thought. But I think the potential is way worse, because I've talked to many people who would do other things with it. So I'm not trying to, it's not, but it's a showpiece for that area, I can say. I think that's probably why it's contested.
Any other questions at this point? We'll hear from, all right, so you have 7 minutes and 15 minutes. Do you have anything to add at this point?
I don't,
You have
sir.
7 minutes and 15 seconds for rebuttal. We'll hear from the opposition, and then you'll have a chance to come back and respond to anything that's said there.
And Councilman Parker is here in opposition. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in opposition? Councilman Parker.
Hi, good afternoon, board. I appreciate you all being here. This is my first visit to a BZA meeting as a council member. I mostly wanted to come here today to highlight the concerns of the neighbors in the immediate area. I appreciate that y'all have referenced their letters, and it seems like that's been taken into consideration. The variance that's requested is a 75% reduction of the setback requirements, and the hardship as presented just seems to be that they'd like to build that additional unit. And I mean, it is an irregular lot, but I think given the nature of the hardship and the high level of opposition from neighbors and frankly lack of support, I would ask that you deny this variance request.
One of the things that the applicant raised as an issue that we hear fairly frequently is that this is the better of two potential evils for the neighborhood, and we have a plan A and a plan B, or option 1 and option 2, and usually they're presented to kind of, and I don't know that this was the intent of the applicant, I won't say that, but kind of scare the board to say, oh boy, this could come up, and what they can do by right is as the applicant said, perhaps much worse for the immediate neighbor. And so anyway, that's just, we get a lot of that, and that's what happened here. But it also seems to me like the type of case where maybe with more discussion, like I said, I like cases where the council person and the neighbors are kind of happy about something. Sure. And that they make the decision and they come to us and say, yeah, they can do option 2 and we don't like option 2 and we're actually satisfied with option 1. In this case, we don't have any neighbors or council that is coming and saying that. And so I guess the only thing, the question I would have is if we were to get to a point where we didn't feel like we could approve of this person's request, would you be amenable to working with this person on and the neighbors on basically having us defer it until maybe a more acceptable solution is reached, or have you kind of exhausted that already with this applicant?
It's my understanding that the applicant has talked with a lot of the neighbors in the area, and I was contacted by several neighbors in opposition to this directly, as well as the emails that you've seen. And I have not heard anything but opposition to this variance from them. I would be open to, if something could be agreed upon with the neighbors in the area, I would be open to it in that case, but just based on the level of opposition that I'm seeing, I can't support it.
Right, okay. And I just wanted to make sure I understood kind of where everybody is, because we have to decide something.
Sure.
And like I said, sometimes it is the better of two evils, and sometimes it's,
Can I ask a question about the, given the irregular shape of the lot, could someone actually go back to the underlying lot lines there and redivide it?
That I don't know. I'll have to ask. The question was that the applicant had raised the issue of option 2 being going to the underlying, basically replatting it with the underlying lot lines and building 2 homes on the little skinny piece of property and 2 more on the bump out. And so the councilman asked, what's the process for that? And if the applicant chose to do that, then would I presume would there be neighborhood input, and would you have an involvement or anything like that?
To the first question of what would the process be, arduous is the one-word answer to that question. That would be the subdivision of, if it's an originally platted question, then that might not be as involved, but if it is in fact a subdivision, of course, that goes through the planning department and planning commission as part of the subdivision regulations that they oversee pursuant to state law. As for the question of, neighborhood input, I do not doubt that Mr. Wallace, on behalf of his clients, would welcome that sort of input, and the council member has received more than enough interaction with his community with regard to this project that he too would be at the forefront of making sure that was that kind of discussion. Is there a formal hearing with regard to a review of a subdivision application? Potentially. If it has to go to the commission, then it's a something that the commission's going to hear. It is a public meeting. However, with regard to the question of if in fact this was originally platted differently than the orientation that we see, and it's merely a restoration of an originally platted lot, that's a different analysis and is something that's allowed to happen under the power of state law without going before either a zoning board or a planning commission necessarily. They're more than welcome to look into that, of course, and the board would be able to defer this particular request until they could explore those options more fully, work with the council member to see if there's a more palatable outcome that could help everybody move forward.
Thank you. Does that answer?
Yes. I guess my question is, so I think one of the slides that we have shows the underlying lot lines. There they are. So, if you were to do that, I guess my question is, those are very odd, small pieces.
So it comes down to some questions about whether or not the planning department, for whom I do not speak very pointedly, would map an illegally created lot or a legally nonconforming lot. So if this is RM20A zoning, which is the case, then that which is previously or originally identified as lot 38, right in the center, is that going to meet the minimum lot size for RM20A, which I don't recall off the top of my head, but there actually is a minimum lot size even for multifamily zoning. Similarly, lot 37, even smaller. The remnants of lot 26 that include not one but 2 properties and a public street and some little bulb in the middle of the public street there. That's going to be a process, and planning in conjunction with their mapping division especially would have to uncork a lot of that. So the council member's question is right on the nose. Is it really as simple as restoring the lot lines? On this property? No. On the property to the immediate south, where you see the original lots numbered 40 and 41, it would be a lot more straightforward if that were the subject property in question. But here, because of the unusual shape of the lot, the presence of the 2 streets causing that shape, it'd be a bit of a mess to uncork, and I'm more than happy to hand that off to another department besides my own.
Does that answer?
Yes, thank you so much.
Any other questions for the councilman? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Was there any other opposition to the case?
There was no other opposition, so the appellant can come forward and would you like to provide a rebuttal?
Thanks again for this. And I'm absolutely willing to work with the neighbors. I'm the first one to engage them and the councilman, and I would like to do that. And I actually made some offers already that we could change the heights and step back and all kinds of things like that. And since then, since the last council meeting, I've heard nothing, and there's been zero communication. So it's kind of why we're here today. I'm glad that we're here to do this, because I would love to talk to him about it. So if you want to defer it, that'd be outstanding.
If we were to defer this, I think our next meeting is the first.
February 6th.
February 6th, then the meeting after that is 2 weeks later.
In the meantime, if we don't, agree,
What
then I'll
time
pull it.
frame would you prefer? One meeting or two meetings to give you time?
One would be plenty.
And, okay. All right, so that's your request now, is to defer this one meeting for you to work more closely with the council and the neighbor?
Sure.
But the councilman said that they didn't even need another deferral, that there had been plenty of community outreach and everything else. I mean, if the board supports it, then I won't oppose it, but I would just like to point out that the councilman did mention, we went through this whole entire hearing, and now at the end, we're saying we're going to defer it, so.
Well, I think the council member indicated that he would be willing to meet with the appellant and the neighbors again, and if there is a totally different proposal made, they may actually be able to work out something.
Let me ask the applicant, is there anything else that you would like to add at this point in regard to your proposal? And then if so, tell us. If not, then we'll close the public hearing to decide whether or not to decide this case or defer it.
No, sir.
Okay.
Close.
All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and then I'll have us discuss whether, again, we want to decide the case or defer it. I tend to, it is an odd-shaped lot, and it sounds like by right they could build 5 homes. Or proposing 4, and yet I understand why the neighbors are opposed to it. To me, I think denying this without deferring it for additional discussion, in my opinion, is detrimental to the neighborhood, because I think it forces the applicant to follow codes in which the applicant has said, in his opinion, and to some extent I agree, the solution is maybe less desirable. And so I just tend to think that if you can ultimately get neighbors in agreement, and that may not be possible, but I think it's worth a try. And so for me, that's why I would prefer to give them another shot at it. But others may feel differently, and that's fine.
Can I ask a question? Either of the options are going to require a variance, right?
I think the applicant was saying that option 2 wouldn't require variance, but it would require him to go to planning or whatever the process that John Michael described a minute ago to split that lot. And that's out of our, but it looks like that if he split that lot, then what he's drawn has 2 5-foot setbacks on the side, and I think that may meet the requirements. He didn't talk about coming back to us for a variance. I think it is going through the process of subdividing the lot, and then he can do whatever each of those new lots allows.
But we're assuming that if he goes to planning or wherever this other process is, he's going to get what he wants. And I'm not terribly, we're assuming facts not in evidence, I think is a phrase that I got fussed at last week by somebody. Wears that black robe over the courthouse.
I agree with Mr. Lawless. Like that the option 2 made an assumption that doesn't exist yet.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think some of this is like the lot is a .25 lot, and I think the zoning was recently changed in June. So to say that, like, just because you change the zoning doesn't change what the lot is, and it doesn't make it a non-conforming lot automatically. And so I guess if we want to defer it to give the applicant more time to talk to the neighbors, I'm sort of skeptical that will make any difference. Because I think, like I've said before, certain horses aren't made for certain courses, and this is a fairly small lot, and they're trying to put a lot on this one little lot.
I agree that it may not make a difference, but I agree with Chairman Taylor. I think your assumption may be correct. It may not say all the other way, but if there's a possibility it could, this gives the neighbors a chance to have some input. And it's also significant to me that we didn't have a whole bunch of neighbors show up and have to wait for 2 or 3 hours, which happens sometimes, and then they have to come back.
Have a lot of, you're right, have a lot of letters, and I guess I hope it's clear to the applicant that, and I think if we were to vote, it's not going to pass. I don't know that I could vote for it today. I don't see the hardship. But I do think it is worth giving him one more chance to try to create something that's agreeable to the neighbors. And I think that clearly the signal is that the leverage is with the opinion of the neighbors and the council. And that's kind of his burden to meet. So that's where I think, instead of having to reapply and come back and renotice, it's the same applicant, it's the same plan. And therefore, I think we give him another couple of weeks to work it out. And if he can't do it by the 6th, he needs to defer it, then we can defer it to the next meeting. But I don't think we need to hear it 2 more times, but basically come back to us when he's ready.
Do we have a willingness, I'm sort of now looking at our member of the council, whether if we can reopen long enough for him to come up? I'd like his opinion. If he's willing, if he's heard enough that says... Can
we put you on the spot for a
second?
Can
we put you on the spot? I hate doing that to any politician, and I apologize to you.
Yeah.
Please.
And again, sorry to put you on the spot, but we did.
That's quite all right. So I would like to point out that this case has been deferred once before, and we didn't get much of a reason as to why it was deferred. The immediate neighbors were both here at the last BCA meeting in opposition to this case. We asked the applicant to either have it heard or withdrawn at the last BCA meeting, and he chose to defer it. So this would be the second deferral, and it would be asking for those neighbors to come out again on a Thursday afternoon, and potentially myself as well come out on a Thursday afternoon, which I'm happy to do. I think it's a little more difficult for maybe the folks who live at 1218 there to get off work and make their schedules work. So again, I think that there was an opportunity between the first deferral and this meeting for the applicant to follow up with some of those neighbors and try to find something that worked. And I didn't hear anything that was happening to indicate that was happening. And so I don't really see what's going to be different if we defer again. I think that's kind of where I'm at with regards to the deferral.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. It's quite all right, sir.
And I remember this being on the docket the last hearing we had, and I remember the councilman being in the back. So for that reason, I can't support a deferral. But I understand the reasons why. I just want y'all to know that's why I can't support it.
And all those are fair points. So I guess the question I have is does someone have a motion on how to proceed on this?
I just want to bring up one additional sort of to amplify what was said, and I've noticed this several times. Who should go out and bring the people in to discuss it? Is it the applicant or is it the neighbors? And I'm not seeing when the applicant says, we haven't heard anything, it's been quiet since we were here before. I just see it being the shoe should be on the other foot, and that's probably why I'm not really in favor of the deferral either, because the people have shown up, the neighbors, and the councilman was here. I mean, this is 2 shots at that apple.
All right. How about another approach, and that'll be, and I'll make it as a motion, that we deny the motion for variance based on the lack of stated hardship. We also recognize that the lot is an odd-shaped lot, and if the applicant chooses to present a different plan, he may apply for that within the 6-month window to reapply, because it would have to be different than what's proposed. But we specifically say, and I will specifically say in this motion, that the applicant would be allowed to reapply for something on this property if it requires a variance sooner than 6 months, knowing that it would need to be different.
I'll second that.
Oh,
All right, so-
well, I'll defer to you.
All right, so there's a motion, there's a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Next case.
Next case, 2020-001, involving property at 1914 10th Avenue North. Is the applicant here, Kenneth Davis, you can come forward to the front table. This is a request for a variance from minimum lot size requirements to construct a single-family residence. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property is R6. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is a site plan as submitted by the applicant, and finally, the photograph showing you the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 1? Seeing none, the applicant will have 5 minutes to make your desired presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Yes, Kenneth Davis, 2160 Riverway Drive.
Sir, if you would just, no, you're fine, yeah. That one.
This one's working, okay. Kenneth Davis, 2160 Riverway Drive, Old Hickory, Tennessee, 37138. Like I said, we request a variance for the lot size. The lot that is at 1910 is putting the same structure up that we plan on putting at 1914. We're right now in the process of remodeling the existing property that's there and would like to put one in the back that conforms to what's going on in the neighborhood and would definitely be a plus to the neighborhood. On the map that we presented, that we pulled down, they had the 2 little structures in the back were like the 10 little storage units, and we've removed those to bring up the look and the appearance of the neighborhood, and we would like to put that additional property in the back.
Is this a street where folks are buying homes and building too, or is this, I mean, when I looked at this on the map, it looked like your lot was slightly smaller than the other lots on the street. It's close to the requirement, but is this something that's common on the street?
Yes, sir. It's something that's common on that street. Across the street is properties that have done the same thing. Also on 9th Avenue is several properties that have done the same thing. And like I say, at I believe it's 1910, they're in the process of finishing up the exact same thing. I think on the other photograph, you can kind of see it to the left. And I took some other pictures, and I talked to that builder, and that's the exact plan that we want to put at 1914 to keep the neighborhood consistent with what is going on right now.
Now, are you going to keep the existing building and just build behind it, or are you going to have two brand new?
No, I'm going to keep the existing building. We're remodeling that. It was a nice home, and we're in the process of doing that now, so we're not going to tear that one down. We're redoing it, bringing it real nice, and then put the additional property in the back, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
So other than just wanting to build another house in the back, what's your hardship specific to this land, just that it's too short and that your neighbors are doing it? Do your neighbors have enough space to build the 2?
Yes, they have. They got the variance also because we've spoken with them, and like I said, it's the same builder. And like I say, it will keep the footprint of the neighborhood going as it's going now. So we would feel it would be a good addition to what's going on now, ma'am.
Any other questions? Did you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. We'll close the public hearing. Emily, could you bring up is there there's not a wider shot?
This is the widest shot I have right now, or have available.
Yeah, and I guess the only, and I'm not sure where the variance was, but if you look, there are four properties that are kind of right there in the middle of this block that are slightly off the whole rest of the block.
Those are the 3 that are on this map. The red one and the 2 below it are the 3
The three
smaller
on
ones.
there are only
And
three. There are only three on the block.
those are the three in the block. The rest are bigger, but unfortunately, I don't have that in this particular screen.
And so that when we were analyzing the cases, this week for thinking about consent and that type of thing, that was what struck me. And I don't know that the board may or may not find that compelling, but that just a personal rule of thumb is that if it's close, does it give you the rights of your neighbors, or does it give you something more than your neighbors have? And so this one seemed to be one that might give this applicant the same rights as the neighbors, again, within that small window. But it's a square lot, and it's not the right square footage, so that may impact others too. How what? But I don't know that, and again, that's not, thankfully not our worry.
I'm sorry, I understand, I'm just trying to figure, how are you going to get two on there and have ingress and egress onto a public street? But that's like, that isn't necessarily where we are on this one, but are we creating just as much of a issue?
Well, it's a 5,500 square foot lot. It's a nice sized lot.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any question it'd improve the area than what's there, but still.
Any other thoughts or concerns? You have any issues or concerns?
No, I was doing the math. That's about a 6% reduction, which I know is within the realm of what we have done in the past. So I'm just kind of on the fence about it. So I was going to listen to everybody else.
Well, and on the survey, well, it's not a survey, on the drawing that was provided, and I assume by the applicant in our packet, he has one side it being 32 feet, one side being 33 and a third. And so if you square it up on the larger side of it, it puts him 100 feet off. And again, we have had a couple of lot size variances on the docket today, and to me the difference is if you're within that window, do you get more than your neighbors or do you get the same? And that is where and again, could go either way, but would say, well, in a case where you get the same as your neighbors, then I think that's fair, because your lot is smaller than the whole block. There are three on that lot that are on that block that are the same size. Now they're right there together, exactly where his is, and it looks like one already has two houses from the.
One looks almost like exactly what we're looking at.
Yeah, and so like the one two down from it, it looks like it's already plotted for two, and I don't know if they came before us or not, but see, it has 33 and a third there, and here on his it's shown is 33 and a third, which would really put it closer to 100 off. And so that's really the difference here, is that do you get what your neighbors get, and if you're within that small window.
I'll move to approve the variance.
I'll second.
Has a motion to approve the variance, and there's a second. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Next case.
Next case, 2020-002, involving property at 2108 and 2110 Martha Avenue. Is the applicant here for case 002? I think that's who's coming forward. So before you is the zoning, this is a request for a variance from the setback requirements to construct a single-family residence. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning as R6. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally a photograph showing you the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 2? Yes, so each side will have 10 minutes to make your desired presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
My name is Richard Percival. My address is 2027 Greenwood Avenue. I apologize for my ignorance as far as the process. I did not realize I should contact the council person for that area to discuss the issue. The lot itself, as far as I'm aware, has a 20-foot rear setback and I think a 20-foot front setback. The lot is only 60 feet deep, so that leaves a building depth of 20 feet for the house. And the average house these days is around 2,200, 2,400 square feet. I would like to leave enough parking between the two structures to not have to park on the street itself. And so to allow that, I would like to keep the houses only 50 feet wide. And then, so that's why I'm asking for a variance. I have with me a couple options as far as the actual placement of the house. I think the variance I applied for was to keep the 20-foot setback but leave 12 feet in the front, or maybe it's 16, I can't remember. But if it's easier to push the house back and take some out of the rear and the front setback, then that would be fine with me as well. I wasn't aware that there was opposition to this variance until today. I think those issues, though, are mainly stormwater issues with the lot, and any stormwater issues with the lot would be handled by the stormwater department, and I have not had a chance to deal with them yet because we have to go through the variance process first. But any issue, it's not in a floodplain, it's not in a floodway. There is a culvert across the front, but again, like stormwater would have to approve anything as far as stormwater issues with the lot goes. So whatever they require us to do, we would have to do. I guess that's it.
And so why did you choose a front setback request instead of a rear setback request?
It's the plan I brought at the time to when I went to apply for the permit, and then ultimately the variance itself. Again, I have alternate plans. I don't know if that's allowed to be submitted at this time or if it has to go.
Are these not your plans?
Well, I have the plans I turned in were the original ones. I didn't know what the process is, so I don't know if I have to turn in all versions at that time or I have to turn in an exact version.
Well, I think it's fair for people, including this board and your neighbors, to know kind of what it is you really want to do. Now, you're asking for a front setback variance, and once a variance is given, oftentimes it's tied to a site plan. Oftentimes it's just provided because of what you express and what you state the hardship is. But given your councilperson's opposition and issues that she'd work out, and your statement now that you have, that this may not be what you really want to do.
No, it is what I want to do. The houses want to be that exact size. If you guys would prefer them to be further back in the lot, that's fine with me, if that makes it more appealing to you guys. That's all I'm saying.
Well, he submitted a site plan. He's just saying that he's willing to jigger that to move the units.
Yeah, I would like the units to be the size they're drawn, but they can go further back into the lot if that's better for you guys, if that would be more appealing. And on that side of the street, there's no other houses on that side of the street so there's no, I guess, already conforming front setback as far as similar houses next to it. all the houses are on the opposite side.
Okay. Any other questions?
I just would ask that the applicant talk a little bit more about the hardship unique to this land. I understand that he wants the houses to be that size, but other than wanting the houses to be that size, is there any hardship with this particular lot that makes it difficult?
The hardship's the depth of the lot. Most lots are not just 60 feet deep. Like all those other houses, all of those other lots, they are, I mean, well over 100 foot deep. So, I mean, the majority of the houses in that area, I guess they call them tall skinnies, where they just run side by side next to each other. These would be pretty much tall skinnies turned sideways, but in order to keep, enough parking to keep the cars off the street, I'd need to minimize the width of the house facing the street.
Was there a structure on this property at any time?
No, it was attached to the house, I guess, running in the bottom corner. And I'm guessing it was subdivided a while back. I'm not exactly sure what the history of it is.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else to add at this point?
No, I don't, unless I can submit the other plans that are options as far as where the houses would sit, but I think it's kind of self-explanatory as far as putting them back or forth.
Why don't we see what the opposition has to say?
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to submit anything, well, you've expressed an openness to have it going forward and backward, and so and that really is all we're talking about, is how far from Martha we allow. So I'm not sure that that's relevant at this point. But let's hear from the opposition, and then if, based on what the opposition has to say, we can decide if we want to have any additional information.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Come on up and state your name and address and tell us why you're opposed to this project.
Hi, my name is Martin Keith. I live at 2418 Branch Street. My house has got the number 71 up there on the left-hand side. The back of my property abuts the rear of Martha Avenue. I was actually not aware of this zoning meeting until Sunday, and I've only received documentation about it as of this morning from my next door neighbor, who the 105 there is his, and he's next to me also. So we are the two rear neighbors to this property. What he was saying earlier is that this property originally, if you drew that eye all the way straight down to the lower right-hand corner of the block that you see there, that was one long strip before that. And there was a death in the family, and it was split up into two different plats thereafter, and then sold. We have a whole lot of stormwater problem in the area. When I moved in, it was horrible, and the city came and worked on it a little bit, but then my neighbor there at 81 decided he was going to change some things around himself, and as a result, a lot of rocks and dirt and silt has seeped down into the culvert in front of my house and pretty much filled it in. So water runs off of the street directly into my yard and flows down into my neighbor's yard as well. And when it flows down and hits that low point is about the same height, or maybe just barely higher than the lowest points of our backyards. And our backyards are where they abut with that other property that we're talking about. So I don't know why it hasn't been determined as being, not the greatest for runoff, but it certainly is. And my concern is that anything built there is going to make that a whole lot worse without at least some mitigation talked about and determined. So that's pretty much why I'm here.
So if Stormwater determined that this site plan could go forward and the plan adequately mitigated any water problems, would you be okay with that? Because that is the process. He doesn't just get the bill without going through stormwater.
Okay.
Would that make you comfortable?
To some degree, yes.
More comfortable than you are now?
What I can do, though, is I can speak for what I came here for my neighbor as well, but I couldn't speak for that answer that I just gave you for my neighbor, of course, right? Sure. So, because it was originally his request that hey, we got to look into this, and so I'm down here on both of our parts, but that I couldn't address. I'm sure he may have a different answer to that question.
Sure.
What's your desired outcome from today?
Okay, so that's a good question. I'm pretty sure that at some point or another, something's going to be built back there. And I want to be absolutely certain that at least the people who are most affected, those being my neighbor and myself, that we're well aware of exactly what's going back there and aware of the heights of everything, the looks of stuff, but most importantly, what it's going to end up doing to our land. And that's about it.
Okay. Any other questions?
So if I might, so what I'm hearing is the water runoff is your primary, that's really what got you going first.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whether or not aesthetically he builds a property that you like or don't like isn't really our purview, but the water runoff is actually another area of Metro that we don't deal with. Okay. Have you talked to the developer on this one?
I hadn't had the opportunity.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't aware of this until Sunday, as it was.
All right.
Yeah, I think one thing is that I think, I'll be corrected, I think if I'm wrong, that if he built one building within the setbacks, it might take up just as much of a footprint as two buildings. And I think that's your concern, isn't it, with the runoff, is that you're going to lose.
Right. We're not only talking about the 50 feet by 24 feet times 2, but in addition, the driveway space that's going to be in between them, the patio space that's in front of that. I mean, that's what, at least 30% of that property, right? And so that's a lot of area to say, and especially if the rains the way they've been recently, where's that water going to go?
Well, Metro Stormwater will be on top of it. They'll be sure that they build a plan and mitigate all that water. They'll be on top of it.
That's what Emily told me, but that's why I'm here.
I had a question for you. Do you have a preference on where these houses are oriented, whether he pushes them further back or, the setback is as he's proposed it? I know you're concerned about stormwater, but just sort of outside of our purview, so the stuff that is within our purview, like the setbacks, did you have any thoughts on that?
My neighbor Eric might, but I don't. I'm not nearly as opposed to construction in the modern ways that they've been doing it as he, but because I like them, I think they look interesting.
Okay, so any other question? Okay. Did you have anything else to add at this point?
I don't.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll hear back from the applicant. Was there other people that are opposed? Yeah, ma'am, if you'd come up and state your name and address and tell us why you're opposed to this.
My name is Bertha North. I live at 1608 Litton Avenue. And my opposed is mostly the same as his, is we have been bothered with stormwater for years. And my thing is, until we get this problem fixed, we don't need any other added problems to the situation, because they're building these houses now with so much concrete that the water have nowhere to go. And the until they fix some storm drains or something to get this water off of the top of the ground into the storm drain. I don't think we need any more buildings with the concrete, even though he says he was going to fix. And our streets in that neighborhood is not built for cars to park on the street, even though he said he was going to leave space for the driveway. I have noticed that when they have space for the driveway, they have maybe space for 2 cars, but they have 4 people living in these houses with cars, and the other 2 are parked on the street, and there's just room for 1 car to get through.
Okay.
So unless he's going to build them for a drive to get all the cars, because they're building these houses now, Mountain High, and for me, it's just too much concrete there for the water to have any place to go.
Okay.
And until we fix the storm drain problem that the water company has been planning on fixing for years, I don't think we need any more concrete in our neighborhood.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
I know there's a problem. That's the problem. It's not y'all's problem. It's water company's problem. But it's just my opinion.
Right. No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming out and sharing that. And we'll talk with our board. Will talk again about, and we often get a situation where there are concerns of other agencies that people bring to us, and how we deal with that is something we'll have to talk about in a minute when we get to deliberation. But we've had the council lady and 2 neighbors right now come and say stormwater's an issue,
and one more thing.
Respect that.
These people are ruining our neighborhood. This is an old neighborhood. All the houses are pretty much the same. They are building houses now so high up that we are not comfortable in our neighborhood, and we can't afford to leave.
Right. I understand.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. Is there anybody else in opposition to this case? If not, we'll hear back from the applicant.
Again, I apologize for not talking to the neighbors. I didn't realize that the stormwater was such an issue on the property.
Being such an issue, and again, you heard it from the councilman of that district. I don't know if she's your personal councilman, but she is a councilman for the property you own, and to your neighbors. And the lack of, I know you have a specific request today for 12 feet front setback, but it may be worth your while to, and I know stormwater's not in our purview, but it is a legitimate enough concern to me that a more specific plan with a stormwater plan might be more appropriate for us.
In my versions of the setbacks, with the different setbacks, it's got the stormwater remediation plan added to it as well. According to stormwater's plans, you have to take into account all the impervious areas for the lot, and that includes the houses and the driveway. And I've calculated all that, but I have not turned it into stormwater yet because I need approval from you guys first. And if anything, those houses themselves would probably help to buffer the stormwater issues from the lots behind it, because the stormwater mainly comes up from the street at the bottom of the picture, and it goes down Martha and then cuts across the lot and goes through. So to the lots and the driveway would create a buffer, and then if it can be diverted into the culvert in the front and just continue to go down Martha, it might help the actual stormwater issues that are already there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that, this is just one step in his process, and if he designs something, or his civil engineer designs something that stormwater isn't going to approve, they're not going to approve it, and it won't be built. So I think he needs to just get through this step in the process.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Other than if it helps for me to turn in the alternate versions, that's it. That's all I have.
Then you don't have
the alternate versions are still the 12-foot.
No. The alternate versions, one is the 12-foot, one goes to 14, and one goes to 16. So it's either do what I applied for or push the houses back in 2-foot increments.
Sure, yeah, if you'd like to submit those, give those to Jessica, and she'll pass those down to us.
Okay.
So the 16-foot version would be a 20-foot deep house.
No, they're still 24-foot deep houses.
Oh, so well, then you'd ask for a different setback, which we can't give you, you posted a front.
Okay, so you're saying if I try to push the houses back, then I'm asking for
If you push the houses back, then you're asking for a rear setback, which you didn't apply for, and you'd have to renotice that.
Okay, then don't worry about it. Sorry.
All right.
Don't want to have to go through this again.
You're asking for the 12, and yeah, because we haven't asked you're not asking for a rear setback, so the neighbors aren't on notice for that, and so
Okay.
they would
All
have to
right.
be on notice for that. You're only asking for a setback on Martha.
I understand.
Okay, all right, so nothing else to add?
Nope.
All right. Any other questions? We'll close the public hearing. Thoughts?
I have a couple of thoughts. One is that it's about a 9,500 square foot lot, which is very buildable with 2 homes. He's zoned R6. It looks like his lot is a comparable size to the neighboring lots. It's just oriented different from the road. And as well as his proposed home is 24 feet, proposed to be 24 feet deep. That's not very generous, and you can maybe fit 2 rooms back to back. So I don't think he's trying to overbuild at all. I don't really think we can limit his right to build on this lot. And it is just the way it's oriented to the street. And we should also point out the porch is proposed to be 12 feet, and it's a small porch, 12 feet from the property line. The remainder of the home is, both homes are 16 feet proposed.
Well, I agree with all that, and really, it's not really an 8-foot variance request. To me, it's more like a 4 because the porch comes out 4 feet on both of these structures. I do think I think that it's not our purview, as Mr. Lawless put it, to make decisions about stormwater, and I don't think that's ever, I respect the neighbors' concerns about that. I do, but I think we're not equipped to deal with that, and we have to all trust that stormwater is not going to let somebody build if it's going to make a problem worse. And I think it is an odd-shaped lot if you look at the lots around it.
I think the orientation in the neighborhood is the oddness of it in the context.
Well, it's not as deep as the other lots. I mean,
Well, yeah, that's true too. But to me, I was looking at, that's very true, but it's also not as deep, which is what Chairman Taylor pointed out. So I'm okay with this. I think I think a hardship has been shown.
Any other comments? Anybody have a motion?
Sure. I'll move to approve the variance request based on I'm just going to say the orientation of this particular lot in this neighborhood, making it not as deep from the street side as the majority of the other lots in the neighborhood.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and certainly made, and understanding that the motion's made with the assumption that all stormwater requirements will be met.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Can we take a break? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break and reconvene after 5 minutes.
Boarding house without building sidewalks. No, this was on consent.
That was on consent.
My
yeah.
mistake. I got there. Now I'm trying to make y'all hear more cases than you have to, just because I like hanging out with y'all. Next case, 2020-010, involving property at 800 Leland Court. This is a request for a variance from street setback requirements to construct an addition to a single-family residence. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property as RS10, except that's not what the zoning map shows you. I'm still on the wrong case. I'm sorry. Now, so we're looking for 10. There you go. There's a zoning of the map showing the zoning of the property as RS10, and this is the correct parcel. This is the aerial photography showing you the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally, the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 10? Seeing none, the applicant will have 5 minutes to make your desired presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Thank you very much. My name is Matthew Edmond, a resident of 800 Leland Court in Nashville.
And I'm April Edmond.
So we are requesting a setback restriction change from the current setting of 60 feet to 20 feet that would allow us to build a small addition onto the side of the property and a garage. We originally submitted this through the Nashville Planning Committee, and at that point we received approval from the Fire Marshal, Public Works, Traffic and Parking, Stormwater, and Water Services Department. We also submitted letters that were signed by all of our adjacent neighbors, and that should be in your file as well.
Okay.
That's kind of the gist of it. We feel like the hardship is really due to the side of the property. If you go back and look at where the home sits on the property, we currently have a 80-foot right-of-way on Leland Lane, and so 40 feet of that is on our property. So that, in essence, adds another 20 feet onto the 60-foot setback restriction. We also already have sidewalks on the property, if that makes a difference.
On your property that's not shown, or on Leland?
That is on our property, yes, on Leland Lane.
All right.
This is showing Leland Court, and we're asking for the variance on Leland Lane.
So do you currently have a garage, or is it?
We do, yes. So we would be adding a garage that would be perpendicular to the garage that we currently have. So looking at the front of the house, the garage is those far two right windows.
And we're wanting to add a garage where you pull straight in, so it would be a jut out from the right side of the house. So.
And your setback is unusual because you're on the end and you're the first house on the court, is that right? Or in the documents that you sent, that Leland Court has, I guess, stipulated that it can't, that your side setback basically has to be the front setback of the houses on Leland Lane?
On Leland Court, yes, that's correct.
All right.
And the rest of the neighbors in the subdivision have a 5 feet side setback, and the rest of the neighbors also have at least 3-car garages. And the way our lot was set, we were only able to put 2 at the time, so.
Okay.
So is it the house right across from yours that has the other, also has a 60-foot setback? Well, that's the 2 lots?
That's correct, and that was one of the neighbors that we had signed approval or signed. They supported our original plans that we submitted to Metro Planning.
The one that's right across from you?
Correct.
Any other questions? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't think so, unless you have questions.
All right, no, I think we're good, unless you have anything to add. All right, we're done. All right, so I will close the public hearing. Thoughts?
Christina's going to say something. I actually, it seems like this is an unusual characteristic of these two lots due to how the subdivision was designed and platted. So I'm comfortable with granting the variance. That's a motion.
Have a motion, have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? That motion passes 5-1. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next case.
Next case is case 2020-017 involving property at 17.
Yes, 1-6.
Wasn't that on the consent agenda?
No.
Man, I'm sorry. I am just all over the place today.
No, that's item D.
Okay. I'm so sorry. This is case 2020-016 involving property at 3559 Old Clarksville Pike. This is a request for an item D appeal to construct additions to the rear and front of a residence on a legally non-conforming structure. Before you is the zoning map showing the zoning of the property is R40. Area photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. And finally, the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 16? Seeing none, the applicant will have 5 minutes to make your desired presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Yes, my name is Charles Powell. I live at 3559 Old Clarksville Pike. It's in the Jordan area. My wife and I are getting on the elderly side. The house now has only one bathroom. We'd like to construct a bathroom on the back. This is the side offset. It would be the same as it is now with the present structure. We also wanted to add a family room on the front that would be the same setback. That's about it.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just the bathroom in the back? It's just the bathroom in the back?
We were going to, on the new family room, we're going to take the old family room and turn it into a bedroom with a private bath. But that would be on the interior of the house.
Okay, what's where it says new and it's outlined in?
Well, that part that says new, that is the new family room that would be constructed. The setback on the side to the property would be the same as it is now. The new part is on the front toward the road.
Okay. Yeah.
There's only one bathroom now.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to say, my name is Sandra White, and I live at 522 Bismarck Drive. The bathroom that they currently have is not wheelchair accessible, and they won't be able to change it the way the house is set now.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Did you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay.
As long as we're set.
All right, thanks. Well, give us a minute. All right. So, all right, thanks. Nothing else to add. We'll close the public hearing. And item D appeal basically is saying that, it's non-conforming now. Does this make it more non-conforming as a residence, or, it's not asking for any additional setback that it currently has? So, I think that certainly there's an interpretation that says this is not more non-conforming, if all that made sense.
Perfect.
So,
There's no writing theory for it.
right. So, are there any other comments or questions?
I was just going to say, I'll make a motion that we approve the request for the additions because it does not make the residence any more legally non-conforming.
I'll second that.
Have a motion, have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next case.
Now we move on to case 2020-017 involving property at 1704 Bernard Avenue. This is a request for a variance from the minimum lot size requirements in order to construct 2 single-family homes. Before you is a zoning of the map showing the zoning of the property is R8. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. This is the site plan as submitted by the applicant, and finally the photograph showing you the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 17? Yes, so each side will have 10 minutes to make your desired presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address before making that presentation.
All right, yeah, state your name and address and tell us about your appeal.
Okay, my name is Alan Perry, and I'm representing the seller of the property. I'd like to bring up a couple of things about them. They've owned the property. That property's been in their family since 1954, way before the zoning took effect of R8. When the zoning did take effect, it became an R8 property. They checked the tax record just to make sure that their property value wouldn't change at all. And in the tax record, it showed that the property had 8,200 square feet of land, 8,276 to be exact. So they thought, okay, we're good. We'll always be able to build 2 here if we needed to. And so no variance or change was ever made. The tax record still says that today, 8,276. And my clients were selling the property last year, and in doing so, a survey was performed, and they discovered that the property had 7,891 square feet. So they're short by 1.3% of what's needed to have the ability to build 2 on this lot. And so our hardship today is that we're asking for a variance approval based on what they thought they had versus what survey showed.
So you all were here 6 months ago and with the same argument, and it didn't pass. So is there anything new to present that you didn't present when this property came to us before?
No, sir. There's not. I mean, it's the same information, but I don't know that. I know that everyone was on the fence about it. I just wanted to be able to articulate it.
Well, and I think last time it was. The applicant had said that they specifically wanted the second home for a family member and had planned to stay there, and it wasn't for sale, but you mentioned it was for sale. And
it is for sale. Yes, sir.
So that is something that has changed. So, because I think that there was questions from the opposition at the time about a profit motive for wanting that variance, and it was stated no because it was for a family member, but in this situation, it is not the case because it's being actively sold.
And I was not here for the last variance hearing either. I have been hired by them since then to represent them in this case, and I'm not sure what was said at the last meeting as far as what their purpose was for it, but at this time it's to sell the property.
Okay. And then, the only other thing that again, just from my memory of it, and from you heard what I had to say about the other lot size variances that we've had today, and I hope to be consistent as I look at these things, but they're only, and again, from the last hearing, everything on 18th is in the historic overlay, so it is has different regulations than the 6 homes that are on this section of Bernard, which are not in the overlay. And of those 6 homes, this is the only one that even approaches 8,000 square feet. So, this isn't a case where, as in the other street we had, it was one of 3 out of 40 or whatever there were, maybe more than that on that block that were close but, couldn't do it. All their neighbors could. This variance would allow this lot to be the only one of those 6 to have this. And so to me, there's a difference. Now, I don't know how everybody else feels. So I guess what is, other than I know you're close, but it's not like you're close and everybody else is over.
Sure, I understand. No, you're exactly right. And I would say that you're correct that we're the closest one to the 8,000 square feet. I am surprised that the block was originally zoned R8 when nobody had 8,000 square feet on that block. You know, that doesn't make sense to me to begin with. But at the same time, when this property owner, this family, like I said, checked tax record, it was 8,200 square feet. They thought, that's great. We don't have any kind of issue with how it's zoned. So they've always been under the impression that they could build 2 until somebody tried to buy it and they couldn't. And so that's the reason for the hardship, and that's the reason for the variance.
Okay. Any other questions? Did you have anything else to add at this point?
That's
You'll
it.
have 7 minutes and 44 seconds for rebuttal after we hear from the opposition.
Sure.
All right, if there is opposition, come forward. If there's more than one, you're welcome to come up and you have 10 minutes total that you have to divide among yourselves.
I'll go ahead and start. My name's Joe Woolley. I own the property that backs up against us on 18th Avenue South. I was here 6 months ago, as were numerous other neighbors. There's more neighbors here this time. The chair has done a good job pointing out all of the objections that were raised last time and the same issues. I'll quickly run through them again. This was the case at Metro School Board, to place it in your minds of when you all heard this before. You denied it for the reasons that have already been stated, and there was talk of having outreach to the neighbors to talk about a plan that the real precedent that this would set is what we're concerned about, and then the issues that come with a second house being built on that property, land coverage, et cetera. This is it's outside the historical overlay in Belmont Hillsborough. There's only 6 houses on that street. It never got the majority it needed to go into the overlay, but it is a historic street. And when you can tear down this house and then build 2, we want to try and preserve that historic nature. At the last meeting, the neighborhood association opposed. They have sent in a letter as well opposing it again this time. 5 neighbors. You should have 4 letters in your packets in opposition. The council member has spoken out against it. The issues, we addressed several as far as density, the historic nature of the street, the precedent that it sets. Parking issues, there's major water issues. The alley that runs alongside it and behind it is the lowest point in that neighborhood, and we're concerned with those. I know you don't oversee that, but this gives you and reminds you of the concerns of the neighborhood. We were willing to work with the developer and the owners to see what could possibly be there, and maybe we agreed to it and said okay, and we could have come and supported this. And that was the direction given to the owners. There has been 0 contact to any of the neighbors around it. There were also concerns that it's dilapidated, condemned, code issues. All of those have been reported. To my knowledge, not many, or if any, have been remedied. This is clearly just a hardship for them to sell it for more money because the zoning has already taken place. And I will remind you that in the last questioning with the applicants at the last meeting, it was shown that they were lying to you, that they could not produce the records that showed that it was large enough and that they had that record to prove that they ever knew it was that. Let's just remind you of that. They could never produce that record. So it's not big enough. We don't think it should be allowed. And I'll end my comments.
State your name and address and tell us your thoughts.
My name is Jasmine Francis. I own the property at 1702 Bernard Avenue. It's just to the east of this property. I just want to clarify a few things. Based on the deeds and based on the survey, the deeds dating back to 1955 and then currently the most recent of 2005, this property is less than 8,000 square feet. It's 78 1941 or something like that. And then based on the deed, the actual deed dating back to the original property is 7903. So previously there was a document that said that it was larger, and they're stating that the zoning document states that it's larger than 8,000. That's a rounding error. So in the zoning, when you look at the preliminary page, it rounds up to acreage. It doesn't give you square footage. So based on the deed size of 55.5 and then 57.4 by 140 deep, that'll give you the accurate square footage. So I care about this because all three other sides of this property are owned by the city. The other side is mine. So if this is a question of square footage, where would that square footage come from? That would be my property. So I am actually neutral. I don't care if they build 2 houses or not on this property. What I have a concern about is this property has been 4 decades a zoning violation. Recently, as of 12/27/19, there's a civil warrant and a citation on this property because for the past 6 months, the owners have refused to clean it up. So there have been multiple inspections. None of that really matters to me. My goal is that there might be progress on this site. I don't care if it's 2, I don't care if it's 1, but I do want to be clear that there is no confusion as to the square footage of this property. On 4 deeds, all the way back to 1955, it is less than 8,000 square feet. I think that's it for me.
I'm Ann Rayner, the owner of the property at 1701 Bernard Avenue. So I am across the street and 2 houses over. My concern is stormwater, as we heard, and I understand that's not really under your reign. But I have a concern with that. We do have a problem in the area. And also just the fact that we don't know, 2 houses on that piece of property, it depends on the size of the house, and how much land or yard, I'm not opposed to development of the property. I can see that block actually being developed in its future probably. But not, like Joe said, not working with development of it. I would have concerns with that. Thank you.
Any questions? Anything else to add? All right, we will hear back from the applicant. Press the, yeah, there you go.
Is that on?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like 2 of the 3 are not necessarily opposed to building 2. It sounds to me more like they're concerned with stormwater. They're concerned with the condition of the current property, which we agree needs to be changed and needs to be built on. And they care more about, depends on what you build. And we agree, we want it to be sold to a developer that will build something that's compliant with stormwater and with the restrictions that are within the zoning rights. That's it.
Okay. Any other questions? Nothing else to add?
No.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. If I remember the case, it didn't get enough votes last time to pass either way. I think it was maybe 3-1 or a motion that was presented, but the what?
I was saying, Tom was asking if he was there. I don't think he was.
Yeah, I don't think, it wasn't a full group, but I also remember that the motion that didn't pass, which was to deny the request, but also allow the applicant to apply again within 6 months with a specific plan that maybe could rally some more neighborhood and council support.
Did the opposite.
Well, that was out there, and basically to say, if you are allowed by this board to have more than your neighbors, then at least show us what you're going to do. Especially at the time, it was a different scenario it was a different story in terms of whether it was sold or not. And so I don't see anything that's changed. And I do think if all the other houses in that 6 area were over 8,000 square feet and this was the odd one out, we'd have a different conversation from me, because I think that neighbor would be able to have what the others in their zone get. But in this case, it's not.
I agree with the chairman. I remember this case, and it doesn't seem like there's any new information, and so I don't see a reason to change my vote from last time without any new information. If there was new information, I would listen to that and definitely be open to reconsider. But without more, I don't see a reason to change my vote.
And I agree with you.
So since I'm not going to change my vote either, so let me, for the record, I should state why I think that, and I totally respect where the neighbors are on this, as always do, but there's a 1.3% deviation here, and I have consistently thought that if you're within 10%, you're really close, you're within 5%. To me, that's a hardship, but at 1.3%, I think it is, you're depriving somebody of a significant property right based on this much. And again, I respect the neighbor's position, but I want to be consistent, and that's kind of the way I've always looked at these things. So,
any other thoughts? Any motion?
I move that we deny the variance as presented because there's a lack of hardship.
And I second.
Have a motion, have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. All opposed? That motion passes 5-1. Next case.
Case 2020-018 involving property at 4615 Medora Street. This is a request for a variance from height requirements to construct an addition to a carport.
Hey, Emily, I'm sorry, did 18 get pulled from consent?
It did. So
that's when we're here. I'm sorry, I thought you just said 20, but it's 18 we're looking at, right?
That's right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
So is the applicant for case 18 here? And is the opposition still here? Is the opposition here for case 18? Mr. Chairman, it appears that the opposition has left. I don't know if you want to hear it since it was originally pulled, or if you want to go ahead and put it back on consent.
Well, yeah, you know what? Well, that's true. I would say let's go ahead. Let's hear the cases. The opposition one's here, and then if they show up in time to say something, they can say something. If not, then we'll decide. So yes, come on up and state your name and address and tell us why you're here.
Hello.
Do you want me to make the quick presentation first before she speaks? Okay.
Yes, please.
So before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property as RS20. Area photography showing you the surrounding area. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant, and then the current conditions of the property. Now you can go ahead and address the board.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Celeste Green, the owner of 4615 Medora Place. And I'm asking for a variance for the height. There is the addition to my carport is like a slope roof, and there's like a 2 or 3 foot difference between what the codes allows and what was built, and I'm happy to share why that happened, but that's what's going on. So as you can see from the photos that were submitted, it is set back from the property and also like tucked into the trees. And the only people that can see this addition are my neighbors to the right, the left, and the back. And I've submitted letters from all of them, should be in your file, their support.
You're, as your council member said, you're on a dead-end street, and it's a one-sided violation. It's not
Yeah,
the whole
that's
thing
correct.
is higher. It's just the fact that you have a vaulted side.
Yes.
Any questions for the applicant? Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, sir. Thanks.
Okay. Is there any opposition present now? If not, then we will close the public hearing. This was originally on the consent agenda based on the recommendation of the council member, and the fact that the height restrictions for garages are based on the height of the home. And so that one little wing that, if you look at page 225 in our packet, this kind of circled in red, it's just that wing of the left, that eave kind of becomes higher than the house, and it just doesn't seem to me to be a violation that is, that's a problem. So.
This is not one where the contractor is going to get recommended very often.
Yeah, well, and you know, and we see these a lot of times with garage height issues when you have one-story homes. I mean, if this were a two-story home or 1.5-story home, the garage would be fine because it would be lower than the house. And that's why it's a problem. It's not just a daydo or something that they built taller than they should. I think based on what I read, it was in relation to the height of the home. So I'll move that we approve the variance unless there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or thoughts? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next case.
Next case, 2020-020, involving property at 1635 12th Avenue North. Is the applicant here, William Presley? This is a request for a variance from street setback requirements to construct a single-family residence. Before you is a zoning map showing the zoning of the property is RS5. Aerial photography giving you a sense of the surrounding area. Site plan submitted by the applicant, and finally the current conditions of the property. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 20? Seeing none, you'll have 5 minutes to make your desired presentation. Please be sure to identify yourself by name and address.
Okay, I'm William Presley. I live at 1420 Rivermont Circle North in Gallatin, Tennessee. Trying to get the, sorry, I'm kind of nervous about this. I'm not really good at this stuff, public speaking, but my hardship is, my original plan when I bought this property, it was about almost 4 years ago, was to just remodel the house. And it would have been grandfathered in where it sits. And speaking with a contractor at the time, he said the house was actually in pretty bad shape underneath and things. It would probably be cheaper and better if we could tear it down to the foundation and build a new house. And it's on a rock foundation. So it's sturdy. I've actually had a structural engineer come out and said that it could support a full 2-story home on that foundation. Also, what I'm concerned about is the way the property line is now. On the tax record, it shows it was like 6,143 square feet. As the picture illustrates, so you can see a bit of a property line in between the house and the property in that other house next door. The property line now is showing, when they built that new home next door, runs pretty much right into the edge of the house, basically, on my property. And I wish I would have had it done in time. I just had surgery a little bit a few weeks ago. I didn't have time to get the pictures together, but I went by the other day and took some pictures. I do have with me of where you could see where the old property line, I think, used to be. There's a, I don't know if you could see it in any of the pictures that's on there. There's a planter that sticks out. There it is right there, actually. It's red, the brick. It actually sticks out way past. I think that's where the original property line used to be. In the rear of the home, you could also see there's a chain link fence that goes around the property. It runs all the way into the fence of the house next door. They have peeled back that fence, and the property line now sits back about almost 1.5 feet, 2 foot, I think, from where it looks like it used to be. I'm afraid if the home the way it sits now, it's actually got turned into for demolition. Because I hadn't had a chance to get the house done. I couldn't do anything on it. I had a hard time getting a contractor to actually give me a quote for the longest time. One was everyone I went to said they were too busy. They've had, tons of houses they're doing. If the house is tore down, I'm afraid it would no longer be grandfathered in, and I won't be able to build anything. If I have to set back, especially from the side of Wellis, because the property is only 38 foot on the front. If I have to set back, I believe it's, not mistaken, 20 foot. And if I have to set back from the new property line that's showing up, how they got it now, from the left side of the other home, there would pretty much have no room at all to build a home. I mean, it'd be so narrow. And I've also turned in I think a disc for the blueprints of the home. I don't know if you guys have that. I do have the actual blueprints here. If not, to show you what the house would look like that we're proposing to build. And I have actually talked to neighbors. Graham Benson, 1707 12th Avenue. He seemed he was all for it. Everybody in the neighborhood I've talked to actually wants that house gone and something built that would actually improve the neighborhood. It's an eyesore now, and as you can see out front now in some of those pictures, we have to go every few days. That trash builds up quickly, and the neighbor Jordan Jackson, I talked to him yesterday as well. And he says they go out there all the time themselves and picking the trash up. He says the next day it'll be right back. It's not. I guess the corner of that area is just bad. People just want to throw the trash out there because the house is empty right now. And it stays like that constantly. And like I said, the house is an eyesore. And it would definitely improve the neighborhood if I could build a house and if I could use the existing foundation to build that house there. And like I said, it would be a beautiful addition to the neighborhood.
Do you have a survey that's stamped by a surveyor?
No, the surveyor at the time said it would take 6 weeks. I've called like 4 different surveyors that said that they're at least 6 weeks out, so I couldn't get a survey done in time. But I do have from the blueprints, the setback of the front right now is 8'1" from the property line off the front. And it's, I got it here somewhere, 5'8" off the side of Wellis.
How do you know the location of the property line without a survey?
That's just what my blueprints. The guy, the architect, I guess. I don't know if he surveyed or done what, but I don't have that survey. If he did, that's just I'm going by the blueprints that he drew up. The house next door, I believe, is 20. We measured it was 21 foot, I believe, off the property line. From what we think is the property line, it shows on the like I said on the blueprints, it just shows it from the actual property line runs to the middle of where the sidewalk would be. The sidewalk rounds around the corner and stops off right at the front edge. It just and we were proposing to actually we would build the sidewalk. There's still plenty of room. I think I found out we have to have 4 foot of grass area from the sidewalk to the house. And it's 5'8" as it is now. That the porch that's out there now would no longer be there. If we tore down to the foundation, it would just be going from the actual house back, and the porch sits inwards. It's built that way. It was like a corner entry, and like that's what my architect drew the plans for. We thought we would be able to build on that like it is, and he drew the blueprints to have a corner entry from the house, in that area. It's a beautiful set of plans on the house. So.
And did you say you spoke to your council person or not?
Yes, ma'am. I contacted him. He contacted me, and at the time he said he was, he thought it for the community, the continuity of the things would be best if it stayed with the setback rules. But like I said, Mr. Jackson was here earlier. They had to leave. I've got a text from him. He wanted me to give him Mr. Taylor's email so he could contact him himself. Gordon Benson at 1707 12th Avenue, Gordon Jackson at 1633 12th Avenue, and Laura Jewell at 1627 12th Avenue all said yesterday that they would be more than happy for that to be done because they just want that thing out of there.
Now, we got this is Councilman Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Because we got a letter from him dated the 13th that said he'd received communication in opposition, and he respectfully requested we didn't approve the case. So if you said you've talked to him?
I talked to him, yes. He didn't say that there was other opposition. He just said that for the community, that it would be best to keep continuity. But I've talked to all the neighbors right next to the very house next door, the first house across the street on Wellis on the same side. They were all said they would be fine for it. They just want that house tore down and gone and something nice built back.
Okay.
And like I said, if it's tore down and they don't, I can't get the setback, I may not be able to build anything there, and it'll basically be an empty property, and it would definitely destroy me. I've got a lot of money tied up in that property. If I can't build back, it's pretty much useless.
But I guess I don't understand why you, I understand the desire to build on the current foundation, and I respect that there's a historical structure there to do that, and there are cases where we have said that's okay. Usually it's when the lot is of a smaller size, and that's the necessity. But I guess you've testified that you think that the house to the left of you built too close to the line, but I guess I'm not sure how that impacts you, because you're still have to build 5 foot off the line, and
Yes,
you'll
if
be
I
at
build
least
off the line from that side of the home, and if I have to build off the setback rule from Wellis, the lot would be so narrow, because like I said, it's only 38 foot wide across the front as it is. If they set back 5 from the property line where they have it now, and then 20, I think, off the side of Wellis, the house would be like 19, 20 foot wide, I think, at the most.
it's the Wellis side that is
That's the
most
main
of
thing,
concern.
yes. I mean, the way I got the blueprints would be, I'd love it if we could use that foundation and keep where it's at with the corner entry porch. But if not, if worst case, if I could just at least get a variance from the Wellis side, that way I could just move the house back if have to be. But if I could still, my main concern is if I would still be able to build anything if I have to move back off that and it's not grandfathered in anymore. That was my main concern. The only other thing I could do is possibly, but the time restraints is what's killing me on this, because I could possibly just tear the top floor off and remodel the house if I could do that. But with the demolition set, they want basically me to have the appeal. They want me to try to get the appeal, because if I can't get the appeal, they're probably going to go forward with demolition. And if they demolish the house and I can't get an appeal, I pretty much won't be able to build anything.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I'm sorry. One other thing, too. I think Mr. Taylor, one of his concerns was about the sidewalk. That's what he was talking about, the front. He was worried about they want to keep the sidewalk in the area.
Councilman Taylor.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, Councilman Taylor. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
That was what he stressed to me. He didn't mention about any other opposition. He was talking about the sidewalk, because I think if we build now, they want a sidewalk put in, and I think he was afraid it wouldn't have room. But like I said, it's 8'1" from the property line, and the actual house is 5'8" off of the sidewalk. So that's more than enough room to have a 4-foot grass in between from the sidewalk to the house, and we would actually do the sidewalk ourselves on the house.
Okay. So that would be. So
I think that should take care of one of his main concerns.
You are going to put in you said you just testified you're going to put in a code compliant sidewalk in the front of the house.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
They told me at Codes Department that I would have to put in, I think, a variance for the sidewalk as well. We thought at the time there wasn't enough room, but the actual house has got 5'8" from the sidewalk.
Okay.
Where it rounds on the corner of the picture, we measure from that corner where it stops to the house, and it's 5'8". Okay. So there's plenty of room to have a 4-foot grassway there between the sidewalk and the house.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. We'll close the public hearing and discuss.
I want to hear what our colleague Christina has to say about this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I believe it's 39 and a third in the back. It's kind of an odd shape, a little bit odd shape.
Hang on, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, public hearing's closed.
I'm sorry.
And until we open it again to ask you a question, it's just for us to discuss at this point.
So I was looking at the width of the lot, which looks to be on this, without a survey on this Metro GIS, which is relatively accurate, 38 feet. Well, there's a disclaimer that.
I know.
Wasn't
Spoken
gonna,
like a true architect.
Yeah. And so the required street setback is 10 feet, and then I think the side setback would be required to be 5. So that would give 23 feet of width for the house, which I think you can build a house. To be honest, I live in a house that's 19 feet wide, so so to me that's a little that's more generous than what I have. But so I'm not the side setback or the street setback from Wheeless. I'm just concerned when homes get too close to the road and visibility issues, trying to make turns with cars and all. And the front setback, I just can't see how that could remain, and it's very much. It's not in line. It's not contextual with the homes around it. It's clear on this Metro GIS again, without the survey. We only have this to work with, and I think the lot is over 5,000 square feet. It's a 2,200 square foot home that's being proposed. I think that can easily fit on this lot. So and I understand you want to build on the foundation, and normally I think that would be fine, but the building is too close to the road, I think, on both sides, so I would not feel comfortable granting it.
Yeah, I mean, to me it's clear that if it were a vacant lot, that there wouldn't be a hardship, and I mean, and for all those reasons, and to me, and the only thing that I'm thinking about is, what weight do I put on the historic foundation and the fact there's been a house there for a really long time based on the look of the house? And is that something that warrants a variance? And I don't know. I mean, I think if the council member had expressed support, that might have gone a little bit further, but we do have a letter saying the council member is not in support.
Emily, can you show the picture again?
But, I don't have an issue with, and I don't think we can, it wasn't requested today, but at some point a variance on the well list side. I mean, I don't have much issues with side setbacks a little closer if it makes it a more buildable footprint. If there's, some kind of historic context, like the house that's 2 doors down that looks like it's almost on the street at Wellness. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't, I think that part of the problem is that if the house were in even modestly better shape, it could have been renovated and improved in a way that, I don't know what the rule is, but, if you tear down more than X% of it, you got to bring the whole thing up to codes. And if it were in slightly better shape and he only had to renovate 10%, well, he wouldn't be here. He'd have renovated the 10%. So part of it is, the reason he's here is just because of the condition. But that said, the condition is the condition. But there is a scenario where he could have just renovated the home. I don't know that. Is it important? I mean, we can open the hearing to ask if you'd like, but if it's not, okay. So I mean, I guess that again, if it were an empty lot, I don't see a hardship. In this case, but what do you think?
I agree with our architect on the board. I was looking at it because I do sympathize with the applicant, but their lot is 38 wide, while some of the lots immediately next to it are 31 and 35 and 25. I mean, there's sort of a hodgepodge of different levels on the street, but I don't know if that created enough of a hardship in my mind. And I agree that visibility is also sometimes a concern when you get closer to a street. So while I definitely understand the applicant's position, at this point, I don't know if I could support a variance.
I do have a question for Emily on the docket says requesting a variance from street setback. So is that both, I mean, I know in our packet it talks about front and side. Is side an option in this hearing?
What do you mean, is it an option?
Is granting a side setback an option?
You could approve the request in part and deny it in part. You could grant the side setback, but not the front.
So the side currently is 5.8, so if we it's possible for us to approve a 5.8 setback on Wellness if we so chose, and then and to deny the front, which basically would tell the applicant, you have a buildable lot, you just got to push it back, and you can't use, whatever the foundation is, you can use. It's not our business, but at least the applicant doesn't have to come back if we chose to do that.
That's right.
Is there an appropriate act that? I mean, I agree. My main concern was the front, and I didn't have as much of an issue, especially since it looks like it's drawn like. If gray is land and white's road on here, there's more land between the property line and the road, so 5.8 is effectively more. But even if it's required to be, I thought he said 15 or 10, but if it's required to be 10, even 7 would give the applicant a direction and not have to come back. Yeah, any objection? We'll reopen the public hearing for a question.
How long do you own this property? It's been just under 4 years.
How many?
Just under 4 years.
Thanks. We'll reclose the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman.
Can we see that aerial photo again, or maybe one of, okay. There's an existing sidewalk. Is there a photo of the side on of Wheelers looking? Okay. So we have an existing sidewalk that's pretty compliant. It just seemed, I don't know what the sidewalk requirement is for on Wheelers, but it's getting pretty close to the road, and there wouldn't be a lot of room for a grass strip. If a grass strip is required, I don't know.
Well, and it appears that that building is 5.8. So, even, 7.
A valuable point of information for the board, this property has already been through the sidewalk waiver process, and while I don't remember the specifics of the decision has been made. So regardless of what the board might or might not grant by way of a side setback requirement, that would not come at the expense of whatever was approved by way of modification to the sidewalk requirements on that Willis side.
Well, I'll just to push it along and not know where it's going to go, but I'll make a motion that we deny the front setback because of lack of hardship and the contextual issues on the street, but we grant a 6-foot side setback on Wellness Street to allow the applicant to, and based on the historic location of the building.
Architecture, I can't.
It's hard to make out what's going on in these photos.
Does it make sense? I can't. It's the same one that you put. I can't.
Well, the only thing we know for a fact is that the building, well, not for a fact, what's presented is that the building to the property line is 5.8 feet, and so, or 5 feet 8 inches. And so the building, so however wide that stairwell is and,
But is that part, I guess I'm talking more on the foundation, is that where he's wanting to build out to?
yeah,
Can you see where the,
I think he wants to build where that blue wall is.
if that's it, then that's a little bit different, but if he's trying to take it out all the way,
Yeah, I mean, it looks like on the packet, page 243 of the packet, it shows the road, and then it shows a section up to the property line, which to me lines up pretty close to the poles on that stairwell, and then there's 5.8 feet, or 5 feet 8 inches to the blue wall, is what it appears to me to be. And based on this drawing, that's where again, it doesn't have a second. Nobody's ready for that yet, or if they are, they haven't done it. But I'd said 6 feet from the from the property line, which puts it pretty much in the spot that it's in on the well-less side. Again, just in the interest of the applicant knowing what he can do with his property and not having to come back.
I don't have a second, but I wanted to comment. Can I comment without a second?
Absolutely. Well, you can make another motion or do whatever you want to. There's a motion that doesn't have a second. So,
I think because we don't have a survey that's stamped and I can't rely on the accuracy of this drawing on page 243 that we're looking at, I think it could be reasonable to allow him to build on that foundation that he spoke of before.
So would you?
But only on the side.
So would you? So I'll amend my motion to allow a variance on the well-less side of it, minimum of 5 feet 8 inches, to allow him to build on the existing foundation on well-less. However, he might, but deny the front variance. I mean, it may give him 30 feet or 20 feet of existing foundation, but that basically he can build back where that blue wall is in our drawing. That was the intent of my original.
Yeah, okay, I'll second that, but I would say that we take out the 5 foot 8 because we don't know how it was actually measured. And we just say that he's allowed to build on the existing foundation on
that plane, but he can go further back, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he can follow that line of the existing foundation.
And all I said was a minimum of 5 foot 8 inches. I mean, it may be more, but he can build on the existing foundation, provided that it is a minimum of 5 foot, at least 5 foot 8 inches, as he suggested on the survey.
Okay.
Is that acceptable? Because if it's less than that, I think you'd come back and say, no, it's really closer, because I don't think we wanted it to be. Is that? All right, I'll restate.
I understand the motion to
I'll
be
restate
for
the motion
5.8 on the side setback.
that we provide a variance, that we approve a variance to allow the applicant to build a home and only on a side variance on well-less that is at least 5 feet 8 inches. He can build on the current foundation line on well-less as long as it is at least 5 feet 8 inches from the property line.
The property line is shown on the document in our board packet?
Yeah, well, ultimately, his survey will have to do that. And so if it deviates from that, he can build 5 feet 8 inches from his survey, or he can come back to us to build on the existing foundation if it is different than that. Does that make sense? Or is it still muddy? A minimum of a 5/8 setback. We're basically saying, but if
That's what a setback is.
right.
So you're moving for a 5/8 setback.
Right. But I'm just saying, but yeah, okay, that's clear. All right. But denying the front setback for lack of hardship. And did you second that? No. Ross has seconded that. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Is that aye? All opposed? All right, that passes 5-1. Good luck.
Moving on to the short-term rental docket. The first case on the short-term rental docket is case 2019-497 involving property at 808 Lena Street. This is a challenge to the denial of a short-term rental permit due to operation after the permit expired. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 497? Seeing none, Mr. McBroom will make the presentation for staff, and then the applicant will have 5 minutes.
Is the applicant here? Come on up.
Good afternoon, Board. This is operating with an expired permit. Permit issued on August 31st of 2017. 8/20 of 18, the permit was renewed. There were 53 document stays, and 8/31/19, the permit expired. 4 document stays after expiration. The last stay was September of 2019. September 18th of 2019, notice of violation was sent to the P.O. box that is cited here in your packet. Pardon me, and which is the address for the owner, as well as the address on file with on the application for the short-term rental. But the letter was returned and delivered on 10/8/19. Zoning examiner Robert Osborne received a phone call from Ms. Davis regarding a permit, and there's also an attached email that was the correspondence that ensued. On 10/9/19, the renewal permit was submitted, which was past the 30-day grace period. On 10/17/19, the Airbnb ad was removed. On 12/31/19, expiration letter sent indicating renewal submitted too late for renewal. And on 1/9/2020, the home away ad was removed. Complaints, there was one complaint submitted through the hub on September 13th, and it was for advertising and operating with an expired permit. No other action was taken on the property.
So you only have 4 documented rentals on your books after September of 19?
Yeah, yes, sir. Well, 4 document stays after the expiration, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, if you would state your name and address and tell us why you're here.
Hi, Virginia Davis, 808 Lena Street. And I'm here to ask for permission to have the 1-year wait time waived for the permit.
And so tell us what happened. It sounds like a letter was sent. When was the last? It sounds like there were 4 documented stays after it expired in August. And why did you not? Did you just forget to renew your permit, or what happened?
Actually, yes. And I just heard him say that one document was returned to him by mail. But when I did receive the letter that it had been expired, that's when I did reach out to him, and then I act accordingly.
Okay. And then was that in December?
No, that was November.
Okay. Did you rent the house after you talked to Mr. McBroom or talked to Codes?
No, after I was informed that I had to cease rental, take down the advertisements and all that, there was no more rentals.
Okay. And when was the last time you rented the property?
I think it was November.
Okay. All right. Anything else to add? Did you have anything else to add?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No,
Okay.
that's it.
All right, good. Any questions for the applicant? Then we'll close public hearing.
Is the new law that we have to give a 6-month penalty?
That does not apply to this particular permit.
To me, expired permits are, they've already gone through the motions, they've done everything but forgot to renew. There were only 4 documented stays after the permit expired, and the applicant testified that, after they spoke with Codes, they canceled all their permits and did what they were supposed to do. So I don't have an issue with them being able to reapply. on Monday.
Second.
That was my motion. It says seconded. Is there any discussion or other comments? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? That motion passes 4-2. You can apply for a permit on Monday. You don't rent it, don't do anything till you actually get your permit.
Okay.
You
All right,
don't,
thank
you don't, because you don't have a permit now. So wait till you get a permit, and then you can rent again.
Okay, thank you.
If I might interject, Monday's a holiday.
Sorry?
Monday is a holiday.
Oh, yeah, the next business day after tomorrow. Basically, we don't want folks flooding the codes tomorrow, so.
Next case, 2020-012, involving property at 219 Fifth Avenue North. This was a challenge to a denial of a permit due to operation after the permit expired. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 12? Seeing none, Mr. McBroom will make the presentation, and the appellant will have 5 minutes.
The operation dates on the property were October of 2015 through November of 2019. Number of rentals for the unit were 302, 117 occurred after the expiration. Unit 303, that was Unit 302. Unit 303 had 129, 6 after the expiration. Previously permitted, of course it was a type 3 that was issued on September 17th of 2015. On 11/1 of 19, a notice of violation letter was sent by host compliance, and on 11/26 of 2019, BZA appeal was filed. There were no complaints associated with the property, and no other actions were taken. The date the advertisement was removed, they were actually changed to long-term rentals on or about November the 8th of 2019. The concerns associated with this property are that Bill 951 does not allow the board discretion at the time that this permit was issued in 2015.
I'm sorry, would you tell me that last sentence one more time?
Certainly. BL 2014-951 did not allow the board discretion to lessen the one-year prohibition. And per the state law that was passed, the properties are subject to the law that was in place at the time the permit was issued.
Okay. And that's for both properties, 302 and 303?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. All right, if you would turn your mic on and state your name and address and tell us why you're here.
My name is Vijay Upadhyay. I live at 219 Fifth Avenue North, number 301, Nashville, Tennessee, 37219. All right, let's start from the beginning. I was born here in Nashville. I'm a professional civil engineer, general contractor, business owner, and historic building preservationist. In 2011, I purchased this building. It's in the downtown core. It's in the Arts District. It wasn't the Arts District yet, but it's next to the Woolworths. But on the third floor, I built 3 loft apartments. I live in one of them. I short-term rent the other 2. And second floor is I rent to a whole floor tenant, country music guy. He's built it out. It has his publishing company. First floor, I built an event space. In 2015, I started short-term renting it. I got the short-term rental permits for the Unit 2 and Unit 3. And then in 2016, I renewed it. In 2017, I renewed it. 2018, I renewed it. And then in 2019, I guess it was July, I got another short-term rental permit in the downtown core. And I guess mentally, I thought I had paid my permit fee because it had gone up exponentially at that time. But at this point in my life, I wasn't getting a lot of mail at that building downtown. Most of my correspondence with the city and like licenses and permits and property tax comes to my office address, which is by the fairgrounds. That's where the violation came. But so I didn't check, even though I pass this mailbox every day because I live in the building, I didn't check the mailbox quite a bit, that much. And in October, I was expecting mail. And so I looked in the mailbox and I saw the 2 renewal forms, and I panicked, and I went, that day I sent the checks. I got an affidavit written, and I had it notarized. I sent all the information in on every day for the next, I guess, 10 days. I looked for the canceled checks to see if it had gone through, but it didn't. After 10 days, I got the notice of violation, and that's when I changed them to 30-day rentals. I haven't gotten any rentals after the 30-day rentals. And essentially, yeah, that's where I am. I noticed when I'm not done, sorry. When I was looking at the people in opposition yesterday, I was looking at the docket, and I noticed there's like 3 letters, and I was offended at first because this is essentially a boutique hotel. It doesn't affect anyone else except for me because I'm the only person in the building that's a full-time tenant. But there was 2 of the people were realtors, and then I guess the other guy was worried that I didn't have a vested interest in. I could have been an outside investor and didn't have a vested interest in downtown Nashville, which I do. This is a historic building I've been renovating all my life, I guess, and I'm trying to, keep the soul of Nashville. Anyways, that's all I got.
Right. Okay. So, are there any questions? All right. So the question before us is, did you operate on an expired permit, which does seem to be the case because of the evidence that was presented. And I guess what we have to decide is, I guess we have to, as a board, decide whether or not you did that. But let's say you did because the evidence has shown that you did, and you haven't said that you didn't since they expired in February, and presumably you didn't know this, you said you didn't know it until October, and...
Sorry, can I talk?
Yeah.
I think that was incorrect. They expired in September, both of them.
Oh, September?
Yeah, and in October is when I got the mail, and so it was 1 month.
Okay, 1 month, okay. Thank you. Well, and I guess what... I may just tell you in a minute, but there's good news and there's bad news. I mean, we can decide to limit, to decrease the penalty with the exception of people whose permits were issued at a time when the penalty was mandatory to be a year, and that's what the state law changed to say you're grandfathered to the rules that when you got your permit. Well, I think the state may have thought that was supposed to help a lot of folks, and it does probably help a lot of folks, but folks in your situation, it may actually not, because we may not have an option, but we're going to ask the codes folks that in a minute. But I wanted to give you a heads up on that you're bound by the law of the permitting process when you got your permit, and that's based on the state law that Mr. McBring mentioned again. And however unfair some of us may think that's perfectly great, and some of us may not. However fair or unfair we think it is, it's neither here nor there, because we're bound to those laws as we are in all the cases. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that. Was there anything else that you wanted to add before we?
I didn't really understand. So since I got the permit in 2015,
you're bound by 2015 law.
Which
the 2015 law says, and again, we haven't made a determination, but if we determined that the zoning administrator was correct, that you are bound by the 2015 law, and that is a mandatory 1-year waiting period from the time of our finding. And that's just the way it's written. I mean, there was a time when every case we heard, if you violated the rule, sorry, it's a year. So, but again, that's the state law. So. And they can explain it more, but I just wanted to give you a heads up to say that that possibility's out there. All right. So, did you have anything else to add? Nope. All right. We'll close the public hearing. I'm going to ask you one time. We'll reopen the public hearing.
Just so I'm very, very clear, you are testifying that your permit had expired. Remember, you're now testifying before a quasi-judicial body. So
okay, I'm testifying that it expired in September, but I had
Was
I
it-
didn't know it was expired.
That's not what I asked the
Okay.
question. I'm going to zero you straight back in. Was it expired? Did it expire?
They told me that, yeah, they sent me the letter.
That's what I asked. Let's try it one more time. I'm not meaning to be. I just want to make sure, because we're going to have a discussion up here in a few minutes that's going to be a little bit different. Had it expired?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. All right, and I think that we heard from Mr. McBroom that it was rented, so. Well, I think that, again, the thing that really is a tough issue for this law, isn't the specific language?
The way the law reads, it says from the time upon a finding by the Board of Zoning Appeals, there shall be a 1-year wait. So when y'all make that determination, it's a year from that date, according to the language of the law. In one option, this has happened before in situations where we're back in a period where the law did not allow discretion for the board. The applicant has chosen to withdraw the appeal, and at that point, I think the 1-year wait runs from the date the zoning administrator determined that there was operation without a permit. So that would, save a couple months. There have been applications or appellants who have chosen that path. Not a huge gap of time, but it buys them a couple months because if the board makes a determination, if he doesn't withdraw and the board makes a determination, it's a year from the date the board makes a determination. If he withdraws and the board therefore doesn't make a determination, it would be a year from the time the permit was denied.
All right, does anyone object with opening the public hearing, asking the applicant a question? All right, I don't know if you followed, but our hands are basically tied on this one because of the law in effect when you got your permit. If we vote and the evidence pretty clearly shows that the permit expired, it was rented, and therefore you rented without a permit, again, without an ounce of intent and doing everything else right, get that. We don't have any, that's what we have to find because the evidence is there that it happened. And if we do that, then you can apply for a permit a year from today. If you withdraw your case now, you can apply for a permit a year from the time the zoning staff basically lets you know, which is somewhere between September and the 1st of October. It saves you 3 months on getting your permit and reapplying if you withdraw your case. Now, we can decide today. I mean, and I'm only saying this because it seems we're giving you the option to do what is best for you. And in terms of time frame, if you wanted to rent this as a short-term rental, your best option is, in terms of time, minimizing your time, is to withdraw your case. Otherwise, we can decide, and by law, with zero flexibility, because we've gone through this, and I was on the board in 2015, and we had to do these, with the law as it existed then, with zero flexibility, we'd have to give you a year from our finding, which is today. And those are our, we have gone through with everybody. Is there another path? Many, many times. You're not the first one in this situation. But that truly is where we are with those two options.
The renewal doesn't, because I renewed it every year. I just got the permit because I got my certificate of occupancy.
Right, but you didn't renew it this last year.
Yeah, well, but 2018 I did.
Right, and it expired in 2019. And when it expired in 2019, it was rented after that, and and you didn't apply to renew it until after that kind of grace period. I think they give you 30 days after it expires.
There was a grace period?
There's a 30-day grace period, so if it expired September 1st, you really have till October 1st to,
on my permit, it just says September, so wouldn't it be?
So if I recall, this permit expired on September 19th, and we received the renewal documents at the end of October, so he was outside of the 30 grace. We received it, if I recall, on like October 29th. So it was 45 days or so after the expiration, so he was outside of that grace period. So although there is a grace period, it doesn't pertain to this case.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to belabor the point, but we can argue this all night or try to explain it to the applicant, but I think he has a choice to make now, either stay dead for 9 months or stay dead for a year.
Right.
And we don't have any choice.
Yeah. That's right. So, those are your two options. And I guess, a third option, we can defer the case indefinitely if you want to talk to the codes folks and have a deeper understanding of it. But again, the effort here is to give you, this is all done, frankly, to help you have the minimum time. Otherwise, we could have been long done and it would have been a year from today. So, and I'm really sad to say that, but that's just the fact. So, you could, like I said.
I understand what you're telling me, but is there any, do I have any sort of, like, can anything positive come out of it if I don't withdraw it, just to have it on record and then I have to try and change the law?
No. I mean, no. Okay. I mean, the current law is a mandatory year. So, even if you applied for it.
6 months now?
Or mandatory 6 months.
For permits that were issued from that date forward, you can either withdraw your case or you can let the board vote.
Yeah.
The choice is yours. You should probably go ahead and make it, though. If for no other reason, I got to go pick up my daughter at school, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I'll withdraw.
All right. So the applicant's withdrawn that case, and so we will move on to the next case.
Next case, 2020-013, involving property at 39 North Hill Street. This is a challenge to a denial for operating prior to obtaining the permit. So there was no permit that expired. The permit was never issued. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 13? Mr. McBroom will make the presentation for staff, and then the appellant will have 5 minutes.
Yes, as Ms. Lamb stated, this was operating without a permit. The operation dates were October of 2017 through November of 2019. The number of rentals during that period were 75. On September 18th of 2019, the host notice of violation letter was sent. There were no documented complaints. There were no other actions taken. And there is one concern on this. You can see on the packet that you have. This is not before you today, but nonetheless, this is a single occupied or a owner-occupied zone where permits that are owner-occupied are the only ones that are available. And it's rather complicated what is what is written here, but it has to do with the deed, and it indicates that it would not be the primary residence.
I don't see that in.
I saw a quick claim deed somewhere. I'm having a hard time with my computer.
All right, this is 13, right? Were there any questions for Mr. McBroom? And so you said there's, I don't see any ownership issues in the thing, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, that portion of the package may not have been forwarded, but the concern is with the deed and the rider that's on the deed and the fact that there are other properties owned in Davidson County and one that's in Williamson County. But the deed itself has a family rider which negates number 6 on it, which is the occupancy, and it means that it would not have to be primary residence, but owner-occupied permits are the only ones available in that zone. As I said, that's not before you today.
Okay. So, but that is, if we allowed the applicant to apply sooner than, well, or let's say at whatever time the applicant's eligible to apply, that criteria would be reviewed by your office.
That is correct. It would be that would be reviewed by zoning.
Okay, and so if that were in violation, then it would be hopefully picked up at that point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, sir, if you would state your name and address and tell us why you're here.
Chris Barkley, 39 North Hill Street, Nashville, Tennessee. And I think that we're looking to waive the 1 year. I don't have the terminology right in front of me.
Let's say penalty.
Penalty, yeah. Thank you, David, and or Mr. Taylor. This is just simply a case of not being a very good practitioner of Airbnb, frankly. This is the first one we did, and frankly didn't know that we needed a permit. So when we did some due diligence, we found out we did. Then we found out we wouldn't be approved for the permit because of the windows and the smoke detectors that are in our house. The house is very old. It's the oldest house in the neighborhood, I believe.
When was that?
When did we find out?
When were you told you wouldn't be approved because of windows and smoke detectors?
In July. We talked to David Frabbit, and we talked to Jessica Shepard and a few other people. And
so you knew this summer you needed a permit.
We knew this summer, yeah. We found out, I was like, okay, we got to do this. So we went and installed 7 windows and made sure all the smoke detectors went off at the same time. And then we were ready to go. That happened in August, and then we got a letter in I think October 1st saying we need to shut this thing down, and then we did that.
Did you tell the inspector in June that you already were renting, or did you just go in and try to apply for a permit?
I wasn't in that conversation. I don't know what was said. That was my wife, Sally, who is out of town right now and couldn't make it.
And you mentioned a second ago, you said this was your first and you didn't know what to do. Do you have more?
Yeah, at this point we do.
How many do you have?
So my daughter lives in one by the airport, so 1, 2. We only have two others. The reason I was thinking about it is because one is in the new property on South Street named Illume, which is simply just built for short-term rental only. And that's not really ready yet, even though it has closed.
You don't have a permit? I mean, it hasn't rented. Do you have a permit for the one your daughter lives in?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you had that?
Since the same time we did the due diligence.
Since June?
Right, since we found out, like, oh, you need a permit for this. So, and I know it's not an excuse that's awesome and powerful, but it is. The reality is the truth of it, and our goal is to be good stewards of this board and of the law and of the Airbnb program itself. So that's kind of where we're at. We want to do it the right way.
So, okay, I don't have any questions.
I just had a question for Mr. Groom. When was the last rental that you guys have a record of?
It was in November.
2019?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess, we've heard an awful lot of these cases, and it's not very often. In fact, I can't recall a time when someone said they went to codes to get a permit, and even to the extent that they had a fire marshal inspection that would have said change windows and fire detectors, that kind of thing.
Smoke detectors, yeah.
Without knowing that you can't rent without a permit.
Well, that was all. It all happened in one day. It all was one conversation.
But you had
apparently. I wasn't in the conversation.
But you actually physically changed your home, knowing it had to be inspected by the fire. When did the fire marshal come and inspect the home?
Ooh, I wonder if I have that note here. So in August, called electrician, smoke detectors replaced. When one went off, they all did. Had wiring updated. Between June and August, all this stuff happened.
And you're still renting. You're still renting.
Well, we were told that it would be a waste of time and money to apply for it, knowing that it would get denied because the house would not.
I'm not following you on that.
Yeah.
What's a waste
Let me
of
help
time?
him a little bit there. It would be a waste of time to apply for a permit that you're guaranteed to get denied for, period.
Yes,
Very
yes,
hard
sir.
period, very new paragraph. That is not tantamount to go ahead and continue operating in gross violation of the law for a number of months leading to this case today. Somebody might have misunderstood it that way. I don't know whom.
I appreciate that. And that's kind of the case because the windows, when we ordered them, we didn't know it was going to take 6 weeks for them to get here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
So the turnaround time was significant. And again, I understand where you're coming from too.
Well, and I don't, I guess I'm just trying, I appreciate you saying you want to do things right, but I'm trying to figure out at what point you did. I mean, I know you repaired your house, but it sounds like in June you knew you needed a permit and you rented till November. And how does that?
In retrospect, it's a poor decision to go that route, but at the time it felt logical and orderly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else that you want to add?
I know everybody's pressed for time. I actually have to pick up my daughter as well from school, so I think I'm going to close it down there. I know that Mr. McBroom mentioned that it was rented in November, and we did honor guests that wanted to stay that had already booked, and that was very limited, and then it's been shut down since. So I just want to be upfront about that.
Nothing. Have we closed the public hearing?
Yeah, if you don't have anything else to add, then I'll close the public. You're done?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll close the public hearing.
I was just going to.
I'm sorry, just since the public hearing is closed, before y'all start deliberating, I did want to give y'all a very brief primer on the new law. As always, we defer to Metro Legal, so if I say anything out of turn, I'm sure Mr. Dickerson will correct me, but. So the current law does apply to the current law. The 2019-6 is the bill that took away the discretion from the BZA. That law says, upon a finding by the zoning administrator that the property operated without a permit, there shall be a 1-year wait. So the board does not rule on any wait at all or eligibility to apply. The appeal before you today is an item A appeal challenging the fact of whether he operated without a permit. If y'all determine that he operated without a permit, that's the end of the discussion. It goes, the law says, upon a finding by the zoning administrator. So we would go to the date or the time that the zoning administrator had made that determination. So this is very different from the past 4 years of analysis that y'all have given in terms of, did they operate without a permit? If so, is there discretion or is there not discretion in terms of the waiting period to reapply? That's now, because no permit was ever issued, the determination, the year waiting period is determined from the zoning administrator's
Okay.
decision.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
It does.
It's new and different, so if there are questions.
Is at least the fourth short-term rental law that we've.
Sixth,
at
I
least,
think, plus the state
maybe
law.
6. And so, thank you. One, for keeping it straight as best. I know for telling us which law it is and making sure we understand it. But it's been a tough thing to navigate. All right. So the public hearing is closed. And we're not to determine a penalty because of the law that's in place now does that for us. And to me, it was by the admission of the applicant rented without a permit. So I'll move that the zoning administrator did not err and the applicant rented without a permit.
Second.
I have a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Next case.
Very quick announcement, case 2020-012 that was just withdrawn has been unwithdrawn, so I think we'll move that to the heels of the docket after we hear the other short-term rental cases, and then hear that. Y'all can take a vote on that. So there won't be another hearing, he just would like a vote. So moving on to case 2020-014 involving property at 1818 Church Street, Suite 102 and 109. This is a challenge of a denial of a permit that due to operation after the permit expired. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 14? Seeing no opposition, Mr. McBroom will make the presentation for staff, and then the appellant will have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
The operation dates for the property were August of 2017, or excuse me, April of 2017 through August of 2019. The number of rentals on unit number 102 were 249, 24 of which occurred after the expiration. On unit 109, there were 277 total rentals, 32 of which occurred after the expiration. Previously permitted, both properties were permitted on May the 1st of 2017, renewed in 2018, and then expired on May the 1st of 2019. Notice was sent on May the 30th of 2019 in the form of a violation letter. There were no complaints associated with the property, and other action that was taken was that on August the 9th of 2019, a warrant was issued based on continued operation after notification. And on November the 13th of 2019, the warrant was dismissed by legal after reviewing the defendant's information. The date the advertisement was removed was on or about December the 9th of 2019, but actually instead of removal, the listings were changed to 30-night minimum stay, and we did not have any additional concerns with the property.
And when was the last documented rental that you have?
August of 2019.
August, okay. Any questions? All right, if you would, state your name and address and tell us why you're here.
Good afternoon, panel. My name is Chris Fowler. I'm an attorney. My address is 222 2nd Avenue North. I represent the applicant in this case, and I have property manager Brett Whiston with me today. Thank the board for hearing our case. Thank the folks at Metro and Codes and Inspections. They got a tough job handling all of these. The appeal today is for 2 separate units, and we're asking the board for permission to reapply for this permit. The timeline, I don't disagree with Mr. McBroom stated. I would add that there are multiple permits that my client has and maintains, and in 2019, my client thought that they were renewing these 2 along with the other 5 at this 1818 Church Street and other units. We maintain those properties and continue operating those properties just as we operated this 102 and the 109, which we're here for today. We've continued paying taxes all along and acted like we had a permit because we thought we had a permit. I understand that there was a notice that was sent in May that my client flat didn't receive. The first notice that we had was in August the 27th when the warrant was served, and I think Mr. McBroom would support that the next day all listings were removed and there have been no rentals since. So we're now 4.5 months out of being shut down at these 2 properties, and not only not making money, but losing money as we go along.
So you said shut down for 4.5 months?
Since the August 28 day when we had our last rental.
All right. And so when did you all know that you were in violation?
August the 27th of 2019.
But and so you didn't rent it after the 27th?
Correct.
But then you didn't apply to come to us for a good little bit too, right?
And the reason we didn't come here sooner is because we've been through the general sessions, the environmental court process.
I see.
And we've litigated that to a point where Metro finally dismissed the claim against us, but had us to come here.
Okay. And then what happened? I mean, and so basically the testimony is there's 7 total rental units in that property. You renewed 5. You thought you'd renewed 7, but you just renewed 5.
Correct. And the packet of paper that we submitted was our best attempt to show when we rented, when we got notice, and when we stopped.
And so ever since August 30th, it's only been a 30-day rental?
There's one 30-day rental for one of the units, and that's the only rental.
And it's neither, but it's only been rented or advertised for more than 30 days.
Correct.
So, you could have rented it the whole time. It doesn't matter. But you haven't short-term rented it since the end of August.
Correct.
Are there any questions? And anything else to add?
No.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Well, there was a letter that was, it expired in the 1st of May. There was a notice sent at the end of May 30th, I think. So the 1st of June, and I, don't know when or where it was, sent or received, but. Well, I think that, and part of that too, though, is if you go to environmental court, it's a whole different process and it's a different penalty. And so, we've had a lot of folks come to us wanting us to act before, even though they have an environmental court, it's 4:30, I can't talk. Court case pending. And so, it doesn't bother me that they went through that process. To me, it's almost a self-imposed penalty on our end. It's, again, an expired permit. They manage multiple units. We've had folks that manage multiple units that, in one case, it was a lot more than 7, but they didn't submit one. And I think that was determined to say, well, if it's been more than 3 months, then go ahead and reapply, because for 2 years prior, you did everything right. You paid your taxes. It's not a case where you willfully broke the law. So I'm comfortable making a motion that the zoning administrator didn't err and that they are eligible to apply for these 2 permits on Monday or Tuesday. Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. You're eligible to apply for a permit on Tuesday. Don't rent or do anything with those, other than 30 days till you get your permit.
Yes, thank you.
Next case, 2020-015, involving property at 1123 Summit Avenue. This is a challenge to the cancellation of a permit due to an ownership change. Mr. McBroom, is there anyone here in opposition to case 15? I don't see anybody else here. Mr. McBroom will make the presentation on behalf of staff, and then the appellant will have 5 minutes to make the desired presentation.
The permit was issued for this property on September 27, 2019. The renewal was not processed due to the change in ownership. Ownership change occurred on February 13th, 2019. The property went from Timothy J. Neiman to under the Neiman Trust. Operation dates were October of 2017 through November of 2019. Number of rentals 42, and 18 of those occurred after the ownership change. A notice of violation letter was sent by host on November the 1st of 2019. And then there were no complaints associated with the property, but subsequently a cancellation letter was sent by Ms. Lamb, the chief zoning examiner, on January the 6th. But I had actually it's in CityWorks as January the 6th, but I have the letter dated at the 31st of December, and that was in response to the renewal application that had been denied due to the change in ownership. The date the advertisement was removed was on December. Well, there were 2 advertisements. The last one was removed on December the 30th of 2019. And we didn't have any additional concerns of the property. Well, I would like to interject that this is a Type 3 permit, which is non-owner occupied. This is an RM20 zone, and those non-owner occupied permits are still available in that zone classification.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. McBroom? All right. Before we start, I'll just put on the record, I'm a friend of Mr. Neiman, so I'm going to, I think I'm going to turn this over to my co-chair. It's probably the best thing to do in this case. And then you can state your name and tell us why you're here, but you can do it to Mr. Pepper. Yeah, you get the gavel and everything. And I would say goodbye, but we'll come.
My name is Tim Neiman. My address is 1123 Summit Avenue. I'm requesting that the balance of the remaining time on my 1-year penalty for operating without a permit be waived. As described, at the advice of my estate attorney, I changed the ownership of my house into my trust, which I had no idea was going to cause a problem. It didn't, I think you guys have heard these before. I can see you guys shaking your heads. Anyway, I operated just assuming that everything was under great, everything was going fine, paying all my hotel tax and state sales tax on time. I received my renewal letter in August, and I promptly sent that back in. Things were relatively busy in the fall for me, and when my check didn't clear, it wasn't until the end of September or so that I realized that. So I assumed that it had gotten lost in the mail. So I submitted a second renewal application, which, by the way, was inside that 30-day window. I did receive on, let's see, at that point, I think I did come into the codes department in person because I wasn't able to find out why my permit hadn't been renewed. And I did speak with somebody then who said there could be a name change issue. Subsequently, I did receive the warning saying that I was operating without a permit, but I had actually blocked my calendars out. I just didn't realize I needed to delist my listings. I run my stuff myself. So I actually had blocked out the calendars, so there was no way for anybody to actually book. I did that right away when I knew there was something going on. I received the notification after my last rental. My last rental was November 10th. I received in the mail that notification that I was in violation on the 13th. It may have been in the mail earlier, but that's when I received it. So I've since then been, I spoke to various people at the codes department and was under the impression all I needed to do was reapply. And when I sat to reapply for the permit, that's when I was told there was a penalty. And they advised that since I do rely on this income to go in front of you folks to look for a waiving of the balance of the penalty. I think that's everything important. The Type 3 thing maybe it may or may not be important to you. I have a Type 3 permit at the advice of the codes department because I qualify for one with my townhouse, but I am owner occupied, so I'm not concerned about those pieces. So I think that's it.
Mic on. Any questions?
Who's your estate attorney?
Well, so yeah.
Well, I mean, you have a trust. You prepared your quitclaim deed. I'm just trying to find some room here for you, okay? I'm not out to hammer you or anything like that. I'm just, you transferred it from you individually into your trust.
Yep, and I'm the only owner of my trust.
And you're it.
Mm-hmm.
The whole shooting match.
The whole shooting match. I did it as a part of a birthday. I wanted to get my stuff in order, and so all my stuff goes to my nieces and nephews now.
Was that a Friday the 13th?
I don't know.
Okay. When was the zoning when did you sign him?
I beg your pardon?
When did he receive his notice that he was operating without a permit?
It was mailed at the 1st of November, so it would approximately been 10 days, 2 weeks, mid-November.
Mr. Vice Chairman, an important fact that the board doesn't always get to because the facts don't ever line up quite this way. It's worthy of note that when host compliance provides information to our property standards staff, they can say, this was the month that had the last rental. November is the month in question here. The letter was sent on November 1. I think you heard testimony that it was received on or about the 13th of November. We don't know if that rental took place on the 5th, the 1st through the 10th, or on the 29th. We just know it was in the month of November. It's rare that we have a case where the facts line up quite that tight on the timeline that we don't know for sure. However, we do know, and Ms. Lamb can explain this probably more eloquently than I can, when we have cases whereby we issue a cancellation based upon a change in ownership structure, a not uncommon occurrence, as this board knows, we do not penalize operators for the period of time from the actual date of ownership change, here, February of 19, until notice of that cancellation, here, November of 19. So the activity between February and November, not at issue. If the board were to determine that there was a rental after the notice, then that would represent a violation of law, but we don't treat those operations from February to November as violations. So that's not an issue before the board.
Any more questions for okay, so we'll close the public hearing. Thoughts?
Sorry, I'm trying to recall, when the permit gets canceled, what is our discretion in this case? We hear all different kinds of cases.
Well, you've had cases before where non-owner occupied permits were canceled due to ownership change, and they were in zones where non-owner occupied permits were no longer available due to the change in the ordinance. That's not the case here. Permits are still available.
So that's a bit of good news for him.
Yeah, there have been some other people that this happened to, and they're toast. So, and this is one in which we have discretion. This is not one in which we're locked into the year period.
Yes, that was just due to the fact they didn't have a permit, so the new law applies.
Okay.
Other than that, it's the law that was in effect at the time the permit was issued.
But the issue before the board is not the waiting period today. The issue before the board is whether or not we erred in canceling the permit due to the ownership change. If you determine that we did not err due to the ownership change, the permit would be reinstated. If you determined that I'm sorry, I got that backwards. If you determined that we did err in canceling the permit would be reinstated. If you determine that we did not err in canceling the permit due to the change in ownership, he just would come in and reapply.
Gotcha. Okay. Motion. Anyone?
I make a motion that the zoning administrator did not err in canceling the permit, but that the applicant can apply for a new permit on Tuesday.
And I think you're saying he can anyway. So.
He can anyway.
Yeah, but it's good to put that in the record. So you're clear about it.
I like hers.
Okay, so that's second. There's a motion, second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That means I can apply on Tuesday? Okay, thank you.
And so that brings us back to case 2020-012 for a vote. So the hearing is closed on this. It's just a vote on whether or not he operated on the expired permit.
All right, so on this case, we have heard the testimony, and the applicant was given an option to withdraw or not, and has chosen not to withdraw. And so the public hearing is closed, and so we...
I'm sorry. What you're about to say,
Have at it.
for a motion. I didn't mean.
I'm waiting on a motion. Turn your mic on.
I move that the zoning administrator did not err.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion that the zoning administrator did not err, that it was rented after the permit had expired. There's a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. And with that, we're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.